The views and opinions expressed by the guests, listeners, and hosts of any program on WURD Radio do not necessarily reflect those of ownership, management, or advertisers of this station.
All right, everyone, welcome to the Thursday edition of Reality Check, which means it's time for City Council Live. Philadelphia City Council returning, or at least City Council as a whole committee returning for 2021 today. We expect them to join us shortly from virtual chambers. City Council still expected to convene virtually as we are in the middle of a pandemic. But we are still bringing to you live, City Council Live. Go to @phlcouncil.com online to learn more about the Philadelphia City Council and to learn about what may be on tap for today, what's on the agenda for today. So the agenda, the official agenda that's on the Philadelphia Council website may not match completely what will be discussed in Philadelphia. It never does. But it's just the fluid nature of things in Philadelphia City Council. But, we'll definitely be covering that here, also providing everyone with an opportunity to not only listen, but at some point, depending on, when they start, we expect them to start momentarily. But we're going to go ahead and open up the phone lines just in case. And until then, we'll go right directly into Philadelphia City Council once we're told or once we see that they are in session. I'm Charles Ellison, by the way. I'm your anchor for City Council Live, also your host, executive producer, and creator for Reality Check, your daily dose of public affairs. And so we go very local on Thursdays, or we're back to going local on Thursdays here in this new year, this first month of the new year in 2021. Philadelphia City Council expected to join us shortly. So we always are pleased to give you gavel-to-gavel coverage of the Philadelphia City Council. No one really in the country doing it like us, providing you with that real-time gavel-to-gavel coverage on live broadcasted air of their city council for a major city. So we're proud to deliver this to you, this public service to you. And we thank the City Council for allowing us to do that, or making this possible, allowing us to do that as well. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on City Council Live. 215-634-8065, toll free, it is 866-361-0900 here on City Council Live. I'm at Ellison Report on Twitter.com. If you'd like to reach me there, you'd like to see also some of my thoughts, some quick clips of conversations that are happening here live on WURD during programs like Reality Check and City Council Live. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. You're probably watching us, or you're watching me at facebook.com/4word and youtube.com/onWURD. Continue to watch and continue to provide some comments. Let us know, give us your thoughts on what you are anticipating, what you are looking out for in Philadelphia City Council today. I hope there were a bunch of you out there who took the time to look into an opportunity to comment publicly on legislation or affairs that are being discussed in council today. You had to do that by yesterday, Wednesday, 3 p.m. sharp. So I hope that people, I hope we have a robust public comments section of the City Council of the whole that's meeting today. I really do hope for that, and let's continue to also encourage our friends and our neighbors, our fellow residents, also other fellow Philadelphia diasporans to get in on that opportunity to talk directly or to let the Philadelphia City Council hear you. So we'll continue to give more information each week, encouraging people to sign up for public comment. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. We do have news that Philadelphia Police Commissioner Danielle Outlaw is holding a press conference in about an hour. She's going to be responding to an independent analysis or an independent review from the City Controller's Office regarding the Philadelphia Police's response to protests and unrest that occurred in Philadelphia last summer. So the police committee, and this is a really scathing report. It came out yesterday from the office of Philadelphia City Controller Rebecca Reinhardt. It's a scathing report. Go to controller.phila.gov for more on that report, and it's scathing enough where the police commissioner will be responding to it or answering questions from the media regarding this report. Now, there was an editorial about a couple of days ago in the Philadelphia Inquirer urging the mayor to fire Philadelphia Police Commissioner Danielle Outlaw. So, you know, suddenly a lot of folks out there becoming more comfortable about having a conversation about forcing the resignation of Philadelphia Police Commissioner Danielle Outlaw. Now, the Philadelphia Inquirer, this is the editorial board, the Philadelphia Inquirer editorial board said that they had no expectation that the mayor will be calling for the police commissioner's resignation, but that was fairly notable. And so now we have coming out today, seems like some, you know, definitely some coordinated attacks on the police commissioner, but we have coming out today, Rebecca Reinhardt issuing a damning report regarding the city's response to protest, to unrest last year. We do have Philadelphia City Council on. You should start hearing the voice of Philadelphia City Council President Darrell Clark. So let's tune in.
And good morning, everyone. We're going to get started. I understand that state law currently requires that the following announcement be made at the beginning of every remote council session. Due to the current public health emergency, City Council is currently meeting remotely. We are using Microsoft Teams to make this remote meeting possible. Instructions for how the public may view the meeting and offer public comment are included in the stated meeting notice that was published in the Daily News, Inquirer, Legal Intelligencer prior to the meeting, and can also be found on phlcouncil.com. I now note that the hour has come. The clerk will please call the roll to take attendance, and members that are in attendance will please indicate that you are present when your name is called. Also, please say a couple of words to make sure that your image will be displayed on the screen when you speak. Mr. Decker, please call the roll.
Councilwoman Bath.
Good morning. I am present, Council President, colleagues, and Philadelphians. Good to be back.
Morning.
Good morning.
Councilwoman Brooks.
Good morning, Council President, colleagues, and Philadelphia. I'm present.
Good morning.
Councilman Dom.
Morning, Council President, colleagues, and the listening public.
Morning.
Councilwoman Gauthier.
Good morning, Council President, colleagues, and to the public. Excited to be back in session.
Good morning.
Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues, and good morning, Philadelphia.
Good morning.
Councilman Green.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, members of council. Looking forward to another productive session in the city of Philadelphia.
Good morning.
Councilwoman Kim.
Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, Council President.
Good morning.
Councilman Heenan.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues. Happy New Year to all. And I hope everybody is safe and healthy.
Good morning.
Councilman Johnson.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues. Happy New Year. Still seeking justice for Breonna Taylor.
Morning.
Councilman Jones.
Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. Happy New Year's to the viewing public.
Morning.
Councilman O.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues. I am present.
Good morning.
Councilman O'Neill.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Councilwoman Parker.
Good morning, Philadelphia, Council President and colleagues. Great to be back.
Good morning.
Councilwoman Quinones Sanchez.
Totaling about $12.5 million. And the first one is in Burlington County, and it is for a traffic signal.
Councilman Squilla.
Good morning, Council President and colleagues. Present.
Good morning.
Councilman Thomas.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning to the listening public. Happy to be back.
Good morning.
Council President Clark.
And good morning to all. We've established a quorum, so we will now come to order. Despite the great need, there will be no invocation today. We will, however, observe a very brief moment of silent prayer for our city, its leaders, and citizens during the current public health crisis. We will now observe a brief moment of silence. Thank you. Thank you very much. Our next order of business is the approval of the journal of the meeting of Thursday, December 10th, 2020, and the chair recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the journal of the meeting of Thursday, December 10th, 2020 be approved.
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved and properly second that the journal of the meeting of Thursday, December 10th, 2020 stand approved. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, ayes have it, and the journal is approved. And our next order of business is request for leave of absence, and the chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the members of council, there are request for leaves of absence.
Councilman, can you repeat that?
Thank you, Mr. President. Am I clear now?
You have an echo.
No request for leaves of absence today, Mr. President.
Thank you. Chair, thanks to Councilwoman. Thank you very much. And our next order of business is communications. And the clerk will please read the messages from the mayor and any other communications that he may have in his possession. Mr. Decker?
To the President and members of the Council of the City of Philadelphia, I am pleased to advise you that on January 20, 2021, I signed the remaining bills that were passed by Council on December 3, 2020, except Bill number 200425A, which I am returning without my signature, and that on December 15, 2020, and January 7, January 20, and January 27, 2021, I signed all the bills that were passed by Council on December 10, 2020. And I am submitting herewith for the consideration of your honorable body a resolution confirming the appointment of Lisa Sally to the Board of Education of the School District of Philadelphia, and a resolution confirming the appointment of Reginald L. Streeter, Esquire, to the Board of Education of the School District of Philadelphia, and a resolution confirming the appointment of Cecilia Thompson to the Board of Education of the School District of Philadelphia, and a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority to execute and deliver to the Philadelphia Land Bank deeds conveying title to certain properties located in the 1st Councilmanic District, and a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority to execute and deliver to the Philadelphia Land Bank deeds conveying title to certain properties located in the 5th Councilmanic District. And a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 833 East Madison Street, located in the 7th Councilmanic District. And a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 1736 through 38 Bodine Street, located in the 7th Councilmanic District. And a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 1907 North Phillip Street, located in the 7th Councilmanic District. And a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 2001 Pemberton Street, located in the 2nd Councilmanic District. And a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 2006 North Lawrence Street, located in the 7th Councilmanic District. And a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 2031 Orkney Street, located in the 7th Councilmanic District. And a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 2034 Hope Street, located in the 7th Councilmanic District. And a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 2249 Waterloo Street, located in the 7th Councilmanic District. And a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 2551 North 6th Street, located in the 7th Councilmanic District. And a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 2661 North Oriana Street, located in the 7th Councilmanic District. And a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 2919 North 23rd Street, located in the 8th Councilmanic District. And a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 4257 North Fairhill Street, located in the 7th Councilmanic District. And a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 4338 Tacoma Street, located in the 7th Councilmanic District. And an ordinance authorizing and approving the execution and delivery of a service agreement between the City of Philadelphia and the Philadelphia Authority for Industrial Development relating to the refunding of certain bonds previously issued to finance and or refinance alternative funding mechanisms for a portion of the unfunded actuarial accrued liability of the City of Philadelphia retirement system implemented pursuant to the Municipal Pension Plan Funding Standard and Recovery Act, approving the issuance by the Philadelphia Authority for Industrial Development of bonds, notes, or other evidences of indebtedness in one or more series to refund such bonds, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Decker. And that concludes our communications, and our next order of business is the introduction of bills and resolutions. By way of a reminder, we're asking that all resolutions, including privileged resolutions, be placed on the final passes calendar for the next session of council, unless they are being referred to committee. In our current remote environment, this procedure will provide an appropriate opportunity for public comment. I want to thank you very much in advance for your anticipated cooperation. Mr. Decker, will you please read the titles of the legislation that is being offered today by the members?
Councilwoman Parker offers one resolution entitled "A Resolution Honoring the 90th North Atlantic Regional Conference of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, Inc., and declaring March 4, 2021 as Alpha Kappa Alpha Day in the City of Philadelphia."
That will be on next week's calendar.
Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson offers two resolutions entitled "A Resolution Honoring the African American Children's Book Project on the occasion of its 29th Annual African American Children's Book Fair."
Next week's calendar.
And a resolution calling on the City of Philadelphia Board of Pensions and Retirement to adopt environmental social governance criteria and request and disclose climate risk information from all relevant parties.
And that will be next week's calendar.
Councilman Heenan offers two resolutions entitled "A Resolution Calling on Congress to Pass House Resolution 6422 to create a National Infrastructure Bank."
Next week's calendar.
And a resolution honoring the life and legacy of Ted Kirsch for his lifelong commitment to educating children, empowering and supporting teachers, and strengthening the labor movement.
Next week's calendar.
Councilman Jones offers one bill and two resolutions entitled "An Ordinance Establishing Parking Regulations in the Vicinity of Dexter Street and Lakeem Avenue and Green Lane, Baker Street and Levington Avenue, Apple Street and Schurz Lane, Boone Street and Marple Street and Roxborough Avenue, Conroe Street and Peckin Street and Mitchell Street."
The committee.
And a resolution honoring and celebrating Philadelphia's living legends, Dr. Kizzmekia Corbett Reverend Gregory Holston, Reverend Mark Tyler, Deputy Police Commissioner Melvin Singleton, State Representative Joanna McClinton, and the doctors of the Black Doctors Consortium, who were the guiding lights of the year 2020 and are trailblazers and leaders in their respective fields of medicine. And a resolution honoring the life and legacy of esteemed Philadelphia entrepreneur and restaurateur, Kevin Parker.
And that will be on next week's calendar.
Councilman Johnson offers 4 resolutions, entitled a resolution honoring Henry Aaron for a lifetime of pioneering achievements as a professional athlete and civil rights champion.
Next week's calendar.
And a resolution also naming the 1300 block of South Street Kevin Parker Way.
Next week's calendar.
And a resolution also naming the 7000 block of Woodland Avenue Paul Earthquake Moore Way.
Next week's calendar.
And a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 2001 Pemberton Street located in the 2nd Councilmanic District.
And that will be next week's calendar.
Councilwoman Quinona Sanchez offers 2 bills and 15 resolutions. Entitled an ordinance amending section 2 of an ordinance, bill number 140092, approved March 4, 2015, entitled an ordinance authorizing the revision of lines and grades in a portion of city plan numbers 224 and 232 by striking from the city plan and vacating Cayuga Street from Whitaker Avenue to its terminus eastwardly therefrom.
Order to committee.
And an ordinance amending chapter 9/1004 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Contractors to amend standards for contractor licenses related to insurance.
Order to committee.
And a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 833 East Madison Street.
Next week's calendar.
And a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 1736 through 1738 Bodine Street.
Next week's calendar.
And a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 1907 North Phillips Street.
Next week's calendar. Mr. Decker, are all of those land bank resolutions?
I can continue to read the ones that go on next week's calendar until I finish, Mr. President. There are about 10 more. You want me to read through them?
Still, yes.
And a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 2006 North Lawrence Street. And a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 2031 Orkney Street. And a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 2034 Hope Street. And a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 2249 Waterloo Street. And a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 2451 North 6th Street. And a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 2661 North Oriana Street. And a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 4257 North Burial Street. And a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 4338 Tacoma Street.
Those resolutions just read by the Chief Clerk will be on next week's calendar.
And a resolution authorizing the Committee on Appropriations to conduct hearings regarding the Philadelphia Water Department's equitable approach to workforce development, including employment and procurement strategies that support safe, diverse, and inclusive family-sustaining careers.
Today's calendar.
And a resolution confirming the appointment of Cecilia Thompson to the Board of Education of the School District of Philadelphia.
For the committee.
And a resolution confirming the appointment of Lisa Sally to the Board of Education of the School District of Philadelphia.
For the committee.
And a resolution confirming the appointment of Reginald L. Streeter, Esquire, to the Board of Education of the School District of Philadelphia.
Also.
Councilman Green offers 3 bills. On behalf of the Council President, Councilman Green offers an ordinance authorizing and approving the execution and delivery of a service agreement between the City of Philadelphia and the Philadelphia Authority for Industrial Development relating to the refunding of certain bonds previously issued to finance and or refinance alternative funding mechanisms for a portion of the unfunded actuarial accrued liability of the City of Philadelphia retirement system, implemented pursuant to the Municipal Pension Plan Funding Standard and Recovery Act.
For the committee.
And on his own behalf, Councilman Green offers an ordinance signifying the intention of the City of Philadelphia to organize the Philadelphia Public Banking Authority pursuant to authority established under state law.
Chair recognizes Councilman Green.
Thank you, Council President, for the opportunity to say a few words.
Councilman Green, can you hold on a second? Could somebody mute?
I went on Facebook before I went to sleep.
And
And
can I ask the members to mute, please?
you trying to make wine?
Thank you. Councilman Green, please proceed.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this bill to be introduced today. Many of my colleagues and others know that I started my career as a small business lender with Meridian Bank at Broad and Glenwood in North Philadelphia. It's funny because for a number of years while I was there, people would not call me Derek. They would call me the Meridian Man because I worked at Meridian in the Garment Square Center and Garment Square district of North Philadelphia. But it was during that time that I really got a real understanding of the issues of redlining and access to credit and how so many businesses in that community and communities around the city of Philadelphia were not able to grow because of historical issues, systemic racism, and just challenges in getting credit. And I met a lot of small business owners like my father-in-law, who's no longer with us, Ned Mitchell, also known as Mitch, who started his career working at Cadillac as a mechanic and then was able to open a gas station at 20th Indiana. And just having an understanding and talking with him over the years and seeing the challenges he had in trying to grow his business, just like so many small business owners in the city of Philadelphia. And, you know, as we look at the issue of this pandemic and some of the issues and some of the data and news reports we've seen under WHYY talked about pre-COVID, how less than 1/3 of Black businesses had any relationships with banks. Also, only about 12% of Black businesses even went to the SBA in order to get loans. And then here in the city of Philadelphia, we saw a recent study by the Center City District looking at business density and the role of Black and minority-owned businesses. And according to the census, Philadelphia has one of the lowest, if not the lowest, number of Black-owned firms in relation to Black residents in the nation. And that also correlates to the lowest number of businesses in relation to the overall population. So this has been an issue in our city historically. And even the president of the U.S. Black Chambers, Ron Bisbee, said that access to credit is the #1 issue that's limited businesses in being able to grow. And so from my perspective, based on this history, I thought this idea of a public bank is an opportunity to address that issue. And having the city take a more active role in helping businesses, especially small businesses, especially businesses of color, and principally African-American owned businesses, get access to credit. And I think the city needs to take a more active role in helping these businesses to grow. And as these businesses grow, that creates opportunities for jobs and opportunities for us as a city to address poverty. I want to thank my colleagues in council. We've had 11 co-sponsors to this legislation, and this legislation is something that I've been working on for some time, from the hearings we had during my first term about this idea to the fact working with the administration. We hired a national consultant to do a study talking about the benefits of a public bank, having hearings on that report, and then more recently working with the law department and the treasurer's office in drafting today's legislation. So we still have additional work to go in reference to this legislation being passed. Looking forward to a very robust conversation with a number of stakeholders. I want to thank all of the grassroots community-based organizations who helped to put forward and help us draft this legislation and bring a number of people into this coalition regarding this issue, and look forward to a way and this legislation coming to fruition so we can help business owners like Mitch be able to grow and provide jobs and reduce poverty for the benefit of our city. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. That bill will be referred to the appropriate committee. Mr. Decker, you're muted.
Sorry, I apologize, Mr. President. Councilman Green also offers an ordinance amending Chapter 19-200 of the Philadelphia Code entitled City Funds, Deposits, Investments, Disbursements by amending Section 19-201 entitled City Depositories by authorizing the city treasurer to deposit funds in Santander Bank National Association.
That will be referred to the appropriate committee.
Councilwoman Brooks offers one resolution entitled a resolution authorizing the Committee on Children and Youth to conduct hearings, examining the relationship between the property tax exemption for wealthy nonprofits on the school district's budget and the resulting environmental hazards in school district facilities on the health and safety of Philadelphia's most vulnerable children.
That will be on today's calendar.
Councilman Dom offers three resolutions entitled a resolution recognizing the outstanding work of Deborah Diamond as president of Campus Philly upon her departure from the organization.
And that'll be on next week's calendar.
And a resolution honoring and congratulating Dr. Rachel Levine upon her appointment to Assistant Health Secretary in the administration of President Joseph Biden and recognizing her outstanding contributions to the safety and health of Pennsylvanians during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Next week's calendar.
And a resolution recognizing AJC Philadelphia for its work with We Are Here and ORT in the 2021 commemoration of International Holocaust Remembrance Day and further acknowledging January 27th as International Holocaust Remembrance Day in the city of Philadelphia.
And next week's calendar.
Councilman O'Neill offers two resolutions. On behalf of the Council President, Councilman O'Neill offers a resolution authorizing the creation of a zoning code review commission to evaluate and recommend improvements to the Philadelphia zoning code.
And that will be referred to committee. What is the resolution? Mike?
It's authorizing the creation of a zoning code review commission, Mr. President.
Okay. We'll actually put that on next week's calendar.
On his own behalf, Councilman O'Neill offers a resolution recognizing and honoring Paul Deegan on his retirement after more than 30 years of service to PIDC and more than 45 total years of service to the city of Philadelphia.
And now, next week's calendar.
Councilman Squilla offers one resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority to execute and deliver to the Philadelphia Land Bank deeds conveying title to certain properties located in the 1st Councilmanic District.
Next week's calendar.
Councilwoman Bass offers four resolutions entitled a resolution authorizing the Committee on Public Health and Human Services to hold hearings to investigate the city's vaccine contracting process, including an examination of Philly Fighting COVID's contract with the city.
Today's calendar.
And a resolution supporting House President.
Oh, Councilwoman, did you?
Yes, I'd like to. Yes, I'm sorry. I'd like to be recognized.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a moment in Philadelphia history to be remembered, but for all of the wrong reasons. A global pandemic, over 429,000 Americans dead, and right here in Philadelphia, over 2,800. A vaccination process that is expected to be of the highest of standards after the most thorough vetting and then being selected by a city branded as a city of eds and meds. And to have been selected or to have selected an unknown and unproven entity for a contract of over $100,000 for testing, and then to be given the green light for a massive operation at the Philadelphia Convention Center without doing our homework is absolutely unacceptable. That this has happened calls our attention to what everyone knows was a hookup. And we demand answers. Who, when, how, why? More needs to be known. When I think of the unprecedented amount of scrutiny that was put upon the Black Doctors Consortium in the earliest days of the pandemic, I am outraged. The difference in treatment is yet another stark reminder of racism at work when it comes to the treatment of some versus others. Over the years, I can't even remember the number of times I've sat in a board meeting or other meeting and the need to hire came up only to be addressed by saying, we want to hire someone of color, but they have to be qualified. As if a recommendation will be made to replace someone with another that is unquestionably unqualified. It really just makes my blood boil. We owe more to our communities. I look forward to hosting this hearing. We really owe those in our communities who have a mistrust of the medical community, we owe them an explanation, and we owe all citizens and taxpayers an explanation as to how this happened. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And again, that will be referred to committee.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And a resolution supporting House Resolution 25, which would initiate investigations and call for the sanction, including removal from the House of Representatives of members who sought to overturn the 2020 presidential election.
And that will be on next week's calendar.
And a resolution honoring and recognizing Dr. Kizzmekia Corbett for her leadership and achievement on the National Institutes of Health's COVID-19 vaccine research.
And that will be on next week's calendar.
And a resolution honoring and recognizing Stacey Abrams for her leadership as the founder of Fair Fight Action and the New Georgia Project and her achievement in fighting voter suppression.
Next week's calendar.
Councilman O offers one bill and three resolutions. Entitled an ordinance amending Title 19 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Finance, Taxes, and Collections by adding three new definitions to Section 191501 and adding a new Section 191507 entitled Student Debt Tax Credit.
And that will be referred to committee.
And a resolution authorizing hearings in Council's Committee on Public Health and Human Services to assess citywide compliance of Bill number 200306, which mandates healthcare workers receive paid leave should they become infected with the novel coronavirus.
Please count.
And a resolution calling for a public hearing to examine the City of Philadelphia's compliance with the Pennsylvania Firefighter Cancer Presumption Act.
Please calendar.
And a resolution honoring and celebrating the legendary record label Philadelphia International Records on the occasion of their 50th anniversary.
And that will be on next week's calendar.
There are no other bills or resolutions being offered by the members, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Decker. That concludes our introduction of bills and resolutions. There are no reports from committee today. So our next order of business is the consideration of the calendar. There being no bills on the first reading calendar, the chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker for the purpose of calling up resolutions and bills on the second reading and final passage calendar.
Thank you, Mr. President. The following resolutions and bills are being called up from the second reading and final passage calendars today. They are numbers 200719, 200720, 200722, 200723, 200724, 200725, 200726, and 200728. All other bills and resolutions are being held, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman. We will now move to our public comment session. I think we will only need a brief moment to pause to allow our technology professionals some time to connect the speakers we have for today's meeting. So it'll take like 2 minutes, it should take.
Okay, you've been listening in live to Philadelphia City Council. It is City Council Live. City Council Live has returned here on Thursdays. Our Reality Check Thursdays are dedicated to gavel-to-gavel coverage of the Philadelphia City Council. You were just hearing folks like Philadelphia City Council President Darrell Clark opening and introducing the Philadelphia City Council. Also, a number of resolutions introduced. We're waiting on public comment period as we wait. Phone lines are open as we wait during these moments. 21, and they could be short, it could be long. It depends on how they technically set up things. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. You did hear just a few moments ago Philadelphia City Council member Cindy Bass express her anger, her outrage at the situation that has been unfolding as we're getting more and more information about how the city did not vet an organization that went from nonprofit to for-profit called Philly Fighting COVID. She expressing outrage. She's submitting legislation to look more deeply into that, but also expressing outrage at the double standard treatment, the way the city treated the Black Doctors Consortium to eventually end up getting a modest contract for citywide testing, particularly of vulnerable populations in the city. Having to go through hoops for that, but no vetting taking place, no such rigorous checking or background checking of an organization or a company that was created by a 22-year-old student with no prior medical experience. And so she, quoting her, she was saying, "It just makes my blood boil." All right, public comment period is coming back in Philadelphia City Council. Let's tune into that.
Action at a session of council. A speaker on any of those matters must sign up in order to testify. You must call 215-686-3406 by 3 p.m. the day before the session to sign up for public comment. When you call, we will take your name, phone number, the number of the legislative item you are commenting on, and whether you are in support or against the legislation, and add you to the list. We will telephone each person on the list during the council session and invite them to our remote meeting. Under ideal circumstances, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. So today, you actually have 3 minutes to speak because this is ideal circumstances. So you don't have a significant number of people. So a timer will be started. We'll monitor your remaining time throughout your testimony. And when there are 30 seconds remaining, it will be your time. And you'll be reminded of this. Once your allotted time is passed, you will be asked to conclude your remarks. Shortly thereafter, you will be muted and disconnected from the remote meeting. I also reserve the right to limit the number of speakers where repetitious comments are being made on the same matter, and to limit the scope of testimony to only certain items on the agenda during the emergency, which could affect callbacks for public comment at the meeting. Please be aware that this public meeting is being recorded. Because the meeting is public, participants and viewers have no reasonable expectation of privacy. So by continuing to be in the meeting, you are consenting to being recorded. I will now ask that the chief clerk please read the name on our first speaker.
Gabriela Nicole Rodriguez de Jesus.
Good morning.
Good morning, Council President. I want to.
Just state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
My name is Gabriela Nicole Rodriguez de Jesus. I want to thank the council for allowing me to speak today. I want to thank my district council member, Mark Squilla, for sponsoring this resolution. And I want to thank Councilwoman Maria Quinones for introducing this resolution. I'm speaking on behalf of her resolution in support of the Puerto Rico bill. This resolution is an example of a nonpartisan, not only in the U.S., but in PR as well. It is an honest recounting of the island's history and its problematic colonial relationship. As stated in the resolution, Puerto Rico has seen multiple non-binding referendums fought with irregularities and low turnout, only to be used as a political football between parties. Only the Puerto Rican people can decide, but only Congress has the power to acknowledge it. It is clear that previous attempts by the statehood party to settle the status dispute have failed. The latest plebiscite is an example, with the statehood vote winning margin being less than the 40,000 intentionally left blank ballots. Bottom line, there is no consensus. This bill, H.R. 8113, should be supported because it is the only nonpartisan and unbiased option presented in Congress at this time. It does not attempt to force one specific outcome or decision and allows the islands the opportunity to make a binding decision that has not been arranged by a single party. Support Puerto Ricans by letting us decide our future after 500 years of colonialism. Thank you so much. I yield my time.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your testimony. We appreciate it.
There are no other speakers, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Decker. That concludes our public comment session for today. We will now consider the bills and resolutions on the second reading and final passage calendar. Mr. Decker, can you please read the title of resolution number 200719?
A resolution congratulating and honoring Joseph A. Lukitas Sr. on the occasion of his retirement from the Philadelphia Police Department after 24 years of dedicated service to the residents of Philadelphia.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Councilman Jones for a motion on the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the passage of the resolution and thank him for his service.
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that the resolution be adopted. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted. Mr. Decker, please read the title of resolution number 200720.
A resolution celebrating the 50th birthday of PBS.
Chair again recognizes Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. My smarter cousins in my family only looked at that channel as they grew up, and they are much better off because of it financially. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly seconded that the resolution be adopted. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted. Mr. Decker, please read the title of resolution number 200722.
A resolution recognizing and honoring the West Philly Panthers for their success in competing in the 2020 American Youth Football National Championship in Kissimmee, Florida.
Chair again recognizes Councilman Jones.
So I asked Member Thomas, who is the recognized advocate for youth sports, to co-introduce this, and he agreed. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
Second.
And moved and properly second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted. Mr. Decker, please read the title of resolution number 200723.
A resolution calling upon the United States Congress, including members of its Pennsylvania delegation, to support the passage of House Resolution 8113, which recognizes the inherent authority of the people of Puerto Rico to call for a constitutional assembly on status.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Councilwoman Kionis Sanchez.
Thank you, Council President. I move for its adoption.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted. Mr. Decker, please read the title of resolution number 200724.
A resolution recognizing and honoring Drew Weissman, medical doctor, PhD, and Catalin Carrico, PhD, for their visionary discoveries at the University of Pennsylvania, leading to development of the messenger ribonucleic acid technology, which is the foundation of leading COVID-19 vaccine candidates.
Chair recognizes Councilman Don.
Thank you, Council President. This is pretty amazing that in Philadelphia, we had the two doctors who were able to develop the solution for these pharmaceutical companies to get the vaccine. We should all be so proud of that. It's kind of amazing that Philadelphia is the reason why these vaccines are out there. It's amazing to me, and we should all be very proud. Now what we need to do, as Councilmember Bass and all of us feel, is make sure we get the right vaccines and get them distributed, because we're really the reason why the vaccine's available. You just have to make sure they come out. And with that, Council President, I move for the adoption of this resolution.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted. Mr. Decker, resolution number 200725.
A resolution honoring and congratulating the Academy at Palumbo boys volleyball team on their successful 2019 season and an overall 15-6 record in the Philadelphia Public League.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Councilman Thomas for a motion.
Thank you, Council President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly second that the resolution be adopted. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
No opposed. Ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted. Mr. Decker, 200726.
A resolution honoring the life and legacy of Philadelphia Police Captain Frank Milillo.
Chair recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted. Mr. Decker, please read the title of resolution number 200728.
A resolution recognizing and honoring legendary jazz host Bob Perkins for his accomplishments and contributions to radio and print media in Philadelphia.
Chair recognizes Councilman O.
Thank you very much, Council President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted. Mr. Decker, please read any additional resolutions that you may have on today's calendar.
A resolution authorizing the Committee on Appropriations to conduct hearings regarding the Philadelphia Water Department's equitable approach to workforce development, including employment and procurement strategies that support safe, diverse, and inclusive family-sustaining careers, introduced by Councilwoman
This is Councilwoman Canona Sanchez.
Thank you, Council President. This resolution is co-sponsored by Councilmember Catherine Gilmore Richardson, and I move for its adoption.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Resolution is adopted.
and a resolution authorizing the Committee on Children and Youth to conduct hearings examining the relationship between the property tax exemption for wealthy nonprofits on the school district's budget and the resulting environmental hazards in school district facilities on the health and safety of Philadelphia's most vulnerable. Councilwoman Brooks.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Brooks.
I move for the adoption of this resolution.
Second.
It's been moved and second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Ayes have it, and the resolution is adopted.
And a resolution authorizing the Committee on Public Health and Human Services to hold hearings to investigate the city's vaccine contract of Philly Fighting COVID's contract with the city, introduced by Councilwoman Bass.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption.
Second.
It's been moved and
Ooh. We're having some technical issues. Not us. It's not WURD. Really, the live feed coming from. I hope the City Council is aware of this. They really have to fix their live feed because we're just essentially relaying to you what they are relaying to us. And we've actually made the team here, the production team for City Council Live has made some gestures to the technical folks at City Council, offering some assistance to work on that. But in the meantime, we're going to just see if they do work it out, and then we can deliver that live feed to you. So we don't hear it right now, but hopefully we'll hear it shortly. We're waiting to see if we get it, and we get it a lot more cleaner. a lot more smoother there to go. They're back on. Let's go.
Calendar, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. That concludes our calendar for today. And we will move to our speeches. Prior to recognizing members regarding speeches, I will note for the record at this time that we will use the chat feature available in Microsoft Teams to allow members to signify that they wish to be recognized. In order to comply with the Sunshine Act, the chat feature must only be used for this purpose. With that said, are there any speeches on behalf of the minority? With that, the chair recognizes Councilwoman Brooks.
Can you guys hear me? I'm having
Yes,
connectivity issues. Oh my God. Thank you, Council President. I want to say a few words to mark our first council session back. As we know all too well, there is no shortage of problems facing Philadelphians today. From the devastating toll of the raging pandemic, the gun violence epidemic, and the opioid crisis, to the comptroller's recent report on the police response to civil unrest, the safety and well-being in our neighborhoods, and our people must remain our top priority. We also know that there's no easy solutions. We need our young people to return to school, but we can only do so if their safety and the safety of school staff is guaranteed. We need to protect our workers as our local economy continues to open back up, which includes adequate paid sick leave for all. And we need an organized, robust, accessible vaccine operation citywide that prioritizes communities and neighborhoods that have been hit the hardest by the pandemic. Despite these challenges, I am hopeful. We have seen positive messaging coming from President Biden that he will do what we did in Philadelphia: expand sick leave, remove exemptions, and protect all frontline workers. We as a council body are united in our commitment to understanding what mistakes led to the failure of Philly fighting COVID, and working with the administration to swiftly correct, strengthen, and expand our city's vaccination efforts. And we are seeking an unprecedented level of collaboration and dedication to the issue of gun violence and community safety. Just the other day, my office held a meeting that brought together criminal legal reform advocates and violence prevention leaders, groups that usually operate in isolation. This kind of collaboration is what's needed in this moment. It requires everyone coming to the table to stop the violence in our streets. And it will require bold solutions and new ideas to create real safety in our communities, safety that we can feel. There's no doubt that we have our work cut out for us, and that budget shortages will continue to pose a challenge as we address these issues. That is why today I introduced a resolution to hold hearings on payment in lieu of taxes, or pilots, as a way for the city to generate additional revenue that does not place the burden on working people. We have to make sure that everyone is paying their fair share. And as we look towards the possibility of schools reopening, we must prioritize our students who have experienced unmeasurable losses this past year. If we make our buildings safe and support our students, we need funding to do so. So I want to say welcome back to my colleagues. We have a new administration in the White House. We are beginning a new council session, and today is a new day. And to the viewing public, I want to say we see you and we're fighting for you. Thank you so much, Council President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman O.
Thank you very much, Council President. First, I wanted to thank Councilwoman Bass for her introduction of the resolution. I have heard so much, as we all have, just how bizarre and strange and confusing it is, frustrating for people. People they cannot understand what's going on with this vaccine. And for all the healthcare workers and everyone who struggled with this, and I've been contacted by people who said, I got my first shot and I need to get my second. How do I do it? I have no explanation for them other than we're going to look into this, and people want to have this fixed as soon as possible. I also want to thank her for co-sponsoring my 2 resolutions for hearings in front of public health. And the reason I did that is because, unfortunately, over our break, I posted some information about the Health Care Workers Protection law, signed into law by Mayor Kenny, unanimously passed by this council, protecting healthcare workers who contracted COVID-19. To my surprise, I had so many emails and responses that they were being forced to use their vacation time. They weren't use their sick days. They weren't being treated. They were on their own for health care. And there seems to be a lot of confusion or just a lack of knowledge by healthcare providers what the law is in Philadelphia. And so that is a hearing we're going to have. Simultaneously, Janice Armstrong wrote in the Inquirer about the Pennsylvania cancer presumption for firefighters. And from that, I also heard from other firefighters that are very concerned. Quite frankly, they're expressing that they are not, there is not a compliance with this cancer presumption. I don't know. I take what they say seriously. I believe what they're saying. We need to look into this as well. And finally, I'm just going to say that, I was really, as all of us, really just disturbed by the story that came out that exposed sexual harassment, racial discrimination, just workplace abuses at the national level of CBS. Not our local station here, not the parent company, and we were very just disheartened to read about insults and disparaging comments directed towards Yuki Washington. Just a class act of a person of integrity, just really one of the staples of Philadelphia media, who we all respect. We all in this chamber had an opportunity to meet him over the years. What a gentleman, what a positive figure, what a terrible thing to do to this gentleman. Anyway, because of the technicalities of virtual, I learned about it too late to get onto this council session calendar, but I have distributed a resolution standing with him and all other employees who are subject to that kind of mistreatment. And I look forward to that being voted on next week. Thank you very much, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Speeches on the behalf of the majority. I'd like to recognize Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
WURD Radio.
Thank you, Mr. President.
FM and
I
900
rise
AM
today with
WURD
much consternation
Philadelphia.
and in complete and utter dismay over the atrocious set of circumstances we all have been apprised of related to our city's health department and the dubious partnership with Philly Fighting COVID, a novice organization run by a student with no medical training or certifications. First, I want to acknowledge Mayor Kinney, Dr. Farley, and all the hardworking staff members who have been balancing the demands and responses to multiple, ongoing, unprecedented crises all at once. What we all have collectively gone through over the past year would be challenging at best under the best of circumstances. Video of the act on Snapchat. I could not help but wonder, as all my church mothers used to say, how they got over. How did a group led by a college student with no medical experience and no track record of providing medical services anywhere get the responsibility of overseeing a part of our city's vaccine distribution at one of the largest buildings in our city? Before I could fully grasp the complexities of the multiple mishaps, first I had to press the rewind button. I distinctly remember last year, on May 7th, 2020 to be exact, I submitted a letter to Mayor Kinney, signed by 12 of my colleagues here in council, urging him to direct resources to the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium to assist the testing operations they independently established to fill a need and void of testing in communities most impacted by COVID-19, communities who desperately needed testing. The Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium, founded and run by board-certified pediatric surgeon Dr. Ayla Stanford and her team of dedicated medical professionals. Dr. Stanford worked to recruit volunteer doctors, nurses, and other healthcare workers to set up COVID-19 testing sites all across the city, partnering with trusted community anchor organizations with significant credibility in Black and Brown communities. So why is that important? Black and Brown people have been disproportionately impacted by this virus, not only by higher rates of infection and mortality, but also economically. All of us have struggled with this pandemic, but Black and Brown communities continue to be most adversely impacted by COVID-19 and less likely to trust getting the vaccine. On May 27, 2020, this body's advocacy continued. Our majority leader, Councilmember Sherelle L. Parker, passionately questioned Dr. Farley on how other organizations receive contracts to perform testing and contact tracing on behalf of the city, while the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium tested a record number of Philadelphians and still had not received support from the city. Dr. Farley had clearly reviewed the proposal submitted by the Black doctors because he thought their proposal was high. As our appropriations chair, Councilmember Maria Quinones Sanchez said in her response to his criticism, how dare a Black group ask for $7 million? It was not until July 1st that the administration contracted with the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium. In a city where, and I want everybody to hear me very clearly, white privilege, institutional racism, generational poverty, and lack of inclusion have been the standard experience for African Americans, who are the majority of our city's population, you would think the city would jump at the opportunity to expand testing for the most vulnerable while increasing economic opportunity for a minority and woman-owned organization. Regrettably, Mr. President, the Philly Fighting COVID debacle clearly shows the administration still does not value the work of the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium. When we are only one of 5 cities in the country who have been entrusted to receive vaccines directly instead of relying on the distribution of our state. It is astonishing that the administration seemingly handed the responsibility over to a 22-year-old graduate student with no health care or real professional experience at all. This city has a dismal track record with supporting Black and Brown businesses with and through its contracting process. Legacy vendors are relied on repeatedly to provide services regardless of performance, and they can be more cost competitive because they have the infrastructure and the resources already in place that businesses looking to build capacity often don't. Department commissioners and directors have discretion on their contracting, and despite policies that allegedly require the use of a racial equity lens, there have been no significant changes and no actual requirements to issue contracts differently. Businesses owned by people of color and women are often relegated to secondary subcontract opportunities, while the city claims it's meeting its NWBE contracting goals. In the 2020 OEO annual report, there was only one minority-owned business that made it into the top 10 prime vendors list. 5 of the remaining 9 firms had fewer than 10% of their total contract award given to an MBE firm. None of them reached 25%. It doesn't matter how qualified a minority business is, how much education is attained, and how many certifications are earned. Minority businesses are relegated to the subcontractor position. When I read a report that Dr. Stanford, after her heroic efforts, was asked to partner with Philly Fighting COVID, I was furious. Furious, Mr. President. How dare you? How dare you ask the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium, an organization run by board-certified physicians and nurses, many of whom have been practicing medicine for longer than most of the Philly Fighting COVID team has been alive, to partner with Philly Fighting COVID. How dare you ask Dr. Stanford to be the face of your vaccination campaign, to use her name and her organization's name to convince people to participate in a vaccination program and not provide her with the resources and respect to set up a large-scale site like you did Philly Fighting COVID. This can never happen again. That's why I'm standing together with our leadership team and our colleagues and chair of our Public Health and Human Services Committee, Councilmember Cindy Bass, to demand answers on behalf of our constituents. To the administration, I say we are listening to what you say, but we are watching what you do. Your actions are the only thing that will lead us to believe you are actually taking the use of a racial and equity lens seriously. And finally, I want to apologize to my fellow Philadelphians. I hope you will give the city an opportunity to regain your trust and give you the assurance you need to feel confident that the vaccine is safe and that we, as your elected representatives, have your health and safety as our very first priority. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman, for your fresh perspective that I'm sure a lot of people agree with. Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker next.
Thank you, Mr. President. To Councilwoman Catherine Gilmore Richardson, ditto, what she said, just like that. And we'll get there, but I want to start on a positive note, Mr. President. I want to start with a young gentleman who you had the foresight to bring into this body, that our former treasurer and our former budget director, our former everything in this city in Sade, who worked in your office, Mr. President. She had the great honor and privilege of helping to mentor this young gentleman. But last night, he sought to change the game as it relates to what we expect to come from Ivy League institutions, and that was we kicked off the Fell Spring Speaker Series presentation with our very own, I'm sorry, PFM, he's still ours, Matt Stitt, and that the focus is on racial equity and social justice, a conversation. And I kicked it off last night. Leader McClinton, along with Whip Harris, they're going to be second. And our appropriations chair, Councilwoman Maria Quinones Sanchez, is going to close it out. There were over 200 people on the call last night from all walks of life. And we talked about racial equity. And Mr. President, I want you to know I took a page out of your book and I made a call for interns, Mr. President, because I said y'all need to be using y'all intellectual prowess for good, and we need y'all. So y'all come on in. So I want you to know we did say that. The next thing I want to say is that it took me 3 days to watch it because it brought back some painful memories. And last year, I remembered all of these academicians and do-gooders, many of whom I thought had nothing but goodwill in their hearts, advocate for safe injection sites in the city of Philadelphia and condemn those who said, this is not what we need in Philadelphia. And for those people who had that perspective, they attempted to castigate them as NIMBYs who weren't being sensitive to the opioid crisis. On today, I thank Netflix. I thank you, Netflix. If any of the execs pay attention to what we do, we thank you for giving an opportunity for those who created crack, cocaine, corruption, and conspiracy that is now being aired on Netflix. For those of you who lived in Philadelphia through the 80s, you know how it ravaged our community. You know the lack of insensitivity that folks seem to have when they got tough on crime. You know about what happened overseas with our United States, attempting to fund a war, and what one of those who participated in a documentary called Chemical Warfare that was actually engaged in here in the States, and particularly in the Black community. For those of you who condemn people who said no, who saw their own families impacted by this, I want you to watch it. It took me 3 days, but some of you can probably do it in 1 hour and 15 or 1 hour and 20. But if you want to understand why the advocacy against it was so strong, you don't need a white paper to understand it. Listen to the people who lived through it. That's that. Next, my phone has been ringing since last night. I've had leaders of women's organizations across this city call me about some editorial. I haven't seen the editorial. I haven't read the editorial. But apparently the editorial says something about Commissioner Danielle Outlaw, resigning, and that she should resign. And these leaders of these women's organizations were calling saying, what can and should we do? I haven't read it. I need to say to all of them, because by the time I respond via text, it would be tomorrow. Let me read it. But you all should have a discussion about it. And while we are members of this city council, the greatest thing you can do, right, is make sure that you let your voice be heard by communicating with whatever you read that you disagree with. If you affirm it, affirm it. But if you disagree with it, let your voice be heard. And obviously, members of this legislative body, they will do the same. Finally, with fighting for COVID, it's not much more you can add to what Councilwoman Catherine Gilmore Richardson said, but Councilwoman, I was here when Arlene Ackerman was at the school district, and she was doing her best to diversify access to opportunity, to make sure that minority firms had an opportunity to do business with the school district. And I remember how she was castigated. I know how folks have been castigated in this city when they have tried their best to assist minority developers in having access to the opportunity to do business in the city. I want to ask these questions. I want to ask these questions on the record. Councilwoman Bass, as chair of our Committee on Health and Human Services, I thank you, and I'm going to be Johnny on the spot right there by your side as you lead this effort to find out what occurred. But I want to put this on the record now. The health department disclosed this week that approximately 2,500 vaccine doses went to the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium, while 7,000 doses went to Philly fighting COVID. Who made this decision and on what basis? And as Philadelphia struggles with COVID's disproportionate impact on Black and brown communities, you should have an answer. I want to know, how did this unproven, unqualified group of non-healthcare related young people get pushed to the front of the line of the vaccine distribution? This is the most important one. Who advocated on their behalf? I guess reporters, when they're doing this, they do what we call a right to know, right? That's what they do. And I've seen it happen quite often. What's our lady name? She does our, Mary, I think it is. Mary said, you got to learn, Sherelle, I know you're a dinosaur, but you got to learn how to give me all of these things on the text messages on your phone, and we got to give them. The administration does not have to wait for Council Member Bass's hearing to send to City Council every email that they received. Somebody put their name on the line. Somebody's credibility, somebody said, you should do this because I'm telling you they're credible. Somebody said it, Mr. President, and I want to know who it was. And let me tell you why. Because folks raised hell. In the midst of this global pandemic, the civil and social unrest, calling for an end to police brutality, what we witnessed that was wrong on I-76 with the use of tear gas and rubber bullets, and people pumped their fists in the air. And I remember hearings here in City Council when we were questioning the administration, and my friend from Erie called, who I used to serve with, and he said, this seems like a Watergate hearing. Who gave the order to use the tear gas? Who gave the order? Well, I want to know, Mayor Kinney, Health Commissioner Farley, and you know I hold both of you in high esteem. Fauci, Levine, and Farley, you helped keep Philadelphia doing well and fighting against this. But I want to know who made the call. I want to know who put their credibility on the line. I want to know who said this is a green light, you should go. And I want to know who said this group had the credibility, had the academic credentials. And this is what the city of Philadelphia should be doing. You want me to tell you why, Mr. President? Because to some people, Black Lives Matters when it's sexy. But usually when it comes to economic opportunity, all of a sudden that Black Lives Matter, thinking goes, out the window. Dr. Stanford, credible, doing the work, right? If there was an opportunity for any economic advancement, who do you think should have been deserving of it? It should have been her. To all of the failed students who were on the call last night, who heard me tell you that my grandmother told me it wasn't enough to be proficient, that you're going to have to be better. And don't tell me it's not fair, Sherelle Parker, because life ain't fair. You can't walk in the door simply knowing exactly what your counterpart knows. You better study harder. You better know it better. And you better be able to justify it. And we're all human, right? And we all make mistakes. Lord knows I made my own. But in Washington, D.C. on January the 6th, we watched 2 systems of justice. You remember watching that African-American Capitol Police officer walking up the steps while the angry mob and rioters were coming at him, and his quick thinking to get them to walk to go up the other way so they wouldn't go into the. Guess what Black people saw? If it was twisted and it was a white officer and the mob had been Black, they wouldn't have made it up the steps because they would have gotten picked off one by one. They saw 2 systems of justice. Philadelphia, we just showed the world that good things happened in Philadelphia. The nation's eyes were upon us when people castigated our city. But we, working with our commissioners, our residents came out in record numbers. And I'm telling you, I never peacocked as much as I did during the past election. I was proud to be a Philadelphian. But now, if we don't get the answers about this, we will affirm what you know who said when he told the world that bad things happen in Philadelphia. Let good things happen in Philadelphia and tell the truth. Thank you, Mr. President and colleagues. I apologize to you. I'm going to stop apologizing for being lengthy. Y'all like my family. Did they always say, well, listen, when she gets started, you better wait because she's going to keep talking until she finishes. So that's just it. But I thank you all so very much for listening.
Thank you, Councilwoman. It's a good start to our new session. Appreciate you. Appreciate your passion. Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson.
Thank you, Council President. Looks good to see you all here. Very passionately fighting on behalf of those most in need. And so I just want to thank everybody for their passion and commitment to continue to move our city of Philadelphia forward. I just have a brief statement and just want to thank all my colleagues who signed on to a resolution calling on Mayor Kinney and the administration to make Juneteenth an official holiday. I want to thank Councilman Curtis Jones, who worked with me on this issue, and I thank Mayor Kinney, who I talked to yesterday, and he signed an executive order to make Juneteenth an official holiday here in the city of Philadelphia. I want to take a moment to acknowledge the advocates from the Juneteenth Coalition across the city of Philadelphia who were going to do their own storming on City Hall had this issue had not been addressed. And I want to take a moment to acknowledge Ms. Tamara Staley, Supreme Dow, Kofi Asante, Ron Brown, Michael Rashid, Ali Salahuddin, Joe Sertine, and Michael Court for staying on the case and advocating, because surely this is a holiday that is deserving. It reflects not only African culture, it reflects not only African American culture, it reflects American history as well. And so Just thank you for all stepping up to the plate and being co-sponsors of a piece of legislation that we did not decide to move forward on based upon the mayor moving forward and signing an executive order making Juneteenth an official holiday. And again, I want to give a shout out to Councilman Curtis Jones, who counseled with me. We talked about the technicalities around the resolution, and just want to personally say thank you, Councilman Curtis Jones, and thank you all my colleagues. Take care.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Green.
Thank you, Council President. It's good to hear the voice of passion in this body this morning. I want to bring one quick aside. Due to the pandemic, so many different organizations that we typically use to do different events, especially our nonprofit communities, could not have the events that they traditionally have to raise money. And so many nonprofits, both small and large, have been really financially strapped by this pandemic. Many people in this body know I do a lot of advocacy in the disability community. One organization that I support very strongly is Special Olympics. And every year in December, I challenge my colleagues to join me in the polar plunge, which we've done at Drexel University. This year, they're not doing the polar plunge because of the pandemic and health and safety issues, but we're doing what's called the polar pop. And, Councilmember O talked about my fraternity brother, Yuki Washington, who was unjustly maligned, but also on his station, CBS 3 yesterday, they showed a video of and the launch of the polar pop in Special Olympics, where they're having various individuals basically take a water balloon, fill it with cold water, and pop it on camera to support the Special Olympics in lieu of the polar plunge. So like in previous years when I've challenged my colleagues to do the polar plunge, I'm going to challenge them to do the polar pop with me on video. They can film it at their office or outside or somewhere. But I think it's important that we support the Special Olympics in their fundraising activity. And my office sent out information to members of council. Look forward for you joining me in the polar pop and helping to support Special Olympics in their fundraising efforts. And it's due to the pandemic that the Special Olympics had to transition from the polar plunge to the polar pop. And it's because this pandemic has been something that none of us have ever seen. We're dealing with multiple crisis issues in our nation, in our state, and in our city. From the issues of an economic crisis, and I'm trying to address that through my public bank issue, the civil unrest, which many colleagues have talked about today and have been talking about, the homicide rate that we have in our city, and the pandemic. And so you heard the passion that was exhibited today. I share that passion and concern because I have received so many calls regarding this issue. And what I'm going to say is that I'm hopeful that we can chew gum and walk at the same time. And just because people raise issues and critique and have a concern about what happened, this does not need to be a back and forth between the administration and council. Well, there was a public health hearing, and council should have taken additional advocacy in that hearing about this new organization. But, well, the council does not execute contracts. So my concern, and I hope we don't fall into the trap we traditionally do, is make this a executive branch versus legislative branch issue. We need to investigate and examine what happened, but we also need to work together to address this issue. People are afraid. We have been in a vaccine and a pandemic for getting close to a year. People have lost loved ones, people have lost jobs, they've lost businesses. So yes, we can examine what happened and call out what should not have been done, and we need to do that because people are afraid. People want to know how they're going to get this vaccination. But just because we're calling out for these issues and examining these issues doesn't mean we can't also work together and address this issue and address how we get vaccines. And I understand it's been a slow process getting vaccines from manufacturing, from the former administration, and we're speeding things up now. But just because we are raising these issues and have these concerns, we also need to make sure that we are getting the information to the public about what's going on with vaccines. So just like I can be very critical of Dr. Farley and others in reference to how Philly fighting COVID has gotten these vaccines, I can also be supportive of them because I learned information last week when I brought together members of the disability community because they had concerns about the vaccination process, and we got some great information. Just like Councilmember Johnson just applauded the administration in reference to Juneteenth, we also can raise issues and concerns in reference to the lack of economic development opportunities for small businesses, especially businesses of color. So I'm saying that in the spirit of the fact that we have a situation where people have legitimate fear that their loved ones may transition, fear they may not have a job or a business, or how their child being left back in education. So we're in a very challenging time right now. And we're not going to be perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I make errors every single day because I'm human like all of us. And there's times that we try to do the best that we can with the information that we have. And we all acknowledge that because this pandemic is something that's unprecedented. But just because people raise concerns and issues about legitimate problems, that does not mean we cannot work together. And so I'm just hopeful that as we come out of this conversation where we thoroughly investigate who was responsible for this situation occurring, we're also going to work together to make sure that we can build trust back into our city. Because when people say the city is not working properly, they're not just saying that about the administration, they're also saying that about city council, because we're all the city. And so I'm hopeful that as we go forward, just because we ask hard questions and want to hold people accountable for what may have occurred, we still need to work together going forward because we all represent the city. And when someone says the city is not working, they're not just talking about administration, they're also talking about city council, they're talking about the entire city of Philadelphia. And so in that spirit, I hope we can move forward and work collectively together, even though we have our specific roles and jobs to do, but we still can do it collectively and work forward, even though we ask the hard questions of each other. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you so much, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Dunn.
Thank you, Council President. Excuse me. And I want to recognize Deborah Diamond today for her work at Campus Philly during her time as president. She really did an amazing job in helping every student who took classes in Philadelphia to consider at least living in our city, studying here and working in our city and getting them jobs. So appreciate that. Also want to recognize Dr. Levine, which we recognize today. It's kind of amazing to see that our health secretary is now appointed to a federal position by President Biden. I want to thank her for her tireless service to the state, and especially this past year, and we wish her all, I guess, the very best in this new position. And it's also, I think, tremendous for us to acknowledge her years of advocacy on behalf of the LGBTQ community. And we should recognize that she will be the first openly transgender person to serve as a federal official in the United States. And her representation of the trans community on a federal level is really meaningful to the city of Philadelphia and around our country. And lastly, I want to join all my members in your comments about this vaccine and the rollout. And I will say that I know all of us are getting phone calls from everyone, and it's really an embarrassment and a disgrace of what's going on. And I will say that I think one of the other problems, there's three issues here. One, we didn't do a good job in the beginning. As Councilmember Green said, we can do better. And as Councilmember Kathy Gilmore Richardson said, this is the number one issue. But here's one of the questions that I have. We're told we're getting 20,000 vaccines per week. Yet Allegheny County, that has 360,000 fewer residents, is getting 20,000 vaccines a week. That's not right. We need someone. I'll be happy to be the person or council president or the mayor or whoever. We need to fight for more vaccines for Philadelphia. We should be getting 50,000 vaccines a week. This is the number one issue. We need more vaccines. But then, of course, we need a plan on how to implement it. And I actually reached out to Congressman Brady 2 days ago and talked to him about an idea and a plan, and he worked on this with me, and we now have almost every major hospital in the city on board: Temple, Penn, Einstein, Jefferson, Wills-Eye, and I've reached out to Dr. Alice Stanford, head of the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium. We think they should be the ones who are implementing this vaccine, and we have many parking lots across the city, including union parking lots, willing to cooperate and have like drive-through clinics, and we're going to present this idea and plan to the health commissioner. This rollout should occur from the best hospitals and the Black Consortium doctors in the city and allow them to really take control of this. They're the experts. So I look for that going forward, and we look for solutions. And I will say that all the economic issues are tied to getting this vaccine into the hands of the residents of the city. Every person is calling all of us and saying, how do I get my vaccine? Or I got the first shot, how do I get the second shot? And we're not looking too good right now. So we need to step this up, and really, we need more vaccines in the city. So thank you, Council President. I look forward to working on this.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Thomas.
Thank you, Council President. Just want to, first of all, echo the sentiments of my colleagues and communicate some of the frustration that we've seen with the distribution of the vaccine. I'm not going to, in the sports world, I'm not going to continue to tell you you missed the layup. They know they missed the layup. They acknowledged it, and they know that this legislative body is going to hold them accountable. I had the opportunity today to start my day at, not physically, unfortunately, but virtually with Northeast High School. And I just want to take a moment to recognize the students and the staff there. We were able to have a robust conversation as they were able to start their day with a career day. And I was able to have dialogue with them about politics, the political process, and the importance of them being engaged. And one of the immediate questions from the young people was, when will we be able to go back to school? Will the hybrid model be for us? And, I was able to tell them, listen, we want to hear from you. We want to hear from parents. We want to hear from children. We want to hear from teachers, administrators. We want to know what is it that you want to do, and what is it that will make you feel most comfortable. We know that we have a number of problems that we're facing in the city of Philadelphia, and when we look at a lot of these problems, our young people are suffering often more than anybody. We spoke heavily about the coronavirus crisis and the distribution of the vaccine. We have significant issues with our schools. We haven't even talked about the terror attack that took place last week, and the fact that we have to assure that anybody involved in that activity is held accountable. We have other issues as it relates to economics. I'm the chair of Streets and Services. One of our biggest issues that did not get discussed last year was the number of fatalities from car accidents, the issues with hit and runs, and hopefully through some of the work we're doing with the motor vehicle code legislation, we can look to address that issue. And then with all that being said, and I'm pretty sure I missed a couple things, we have to also keep our eye on the prize as it relates to addressing this issue of gun violence. And I believe that this council, in collaboration with the right partners, can really put ourselves in a position where, as though right now, we have more shootings this year than days that we have been in this actual calendar year. And I know my colleague, Councilmember Johnson, has not moved away from this issue. But today, I plan to send my colleagues in council as well as the administration a document that hopefully we can talk about, that specifically speaks to the resolution that we all voted on and agreed upon as it relates to declaring gun violence a state of emergency, but specific action items as it relates to what should happen when we declare a state of emergency. COVID has forced us to be innovative as it relates to everything we do and how we think about things. And when we declare a state of emergency as it relates to gun violence, we have to be innovative with that too. That doesn't always just means an increase in police or military presence or curfews for specific neighborhoods. We could be creative as it relates to how we address the problems that we're facing. We're forced to essentially do so. And I think that's the thing that I really want to challenge all of us to do, is to be more creative and innovative as we look at the ills that we have as a municipality and brainstorm essentially how we address those solutions. I'm excited for the start of the council session. I've been able to work very hard with a lot of my colleagues to be able to put together some things that we know are going to be happening in the next couple of weeks to give us some huge victories for our children, for those who are most in need, for those who are a lot of different industries and sectors who feel like their voice haven't been heard. So I just want to say that I'm extremely optimistic as it relates to the number of problems that we have in our city and our ability to address those problems. Councilmember Derek Green said we have to walk and chew gum at the same time. I agree with that 100%. We're often in a defense mode when it comes to unpredictable things that happen. But I think what I'm really trying to do is get the citizens of Philadelphia to know that we recognize that all these problems exist, and we're working on a consistent basis to try our best to be able to address these issues. So I'm excited to be back, Council President. I'm excited to see and be able to work with my colleagues, and I really look forward to putting us in a position to be able to see what the other side of Philadelphia looks like and feels like after we battle and fight this coronavirus over the next couple of weeks. I know I touched on a lot of points, but the last thing I want to put an emphasis on, because, you know, we're angry about a lot of things clearly, and we know we have a lot of work to do, but there was a terror attack on our country last week, and we understand that there were people who are paid by our tax dollars who were a part of that initiative. And a lot of things have happened. I'm sorry, not last week, a couple weeks ago. And a lot of things have happened since then. And this is our first council session back since then. And we are going to make sure that we hold folks accountable, specifically those who are in law enforcement, who is a part of that unfortunate situation. So thank you, Council President. I appreciate the opportunity, and colleagues, I'm happy to be back.
Thank you, Councilman. You got a lot of work to do. I concur. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gautier.
Thank you, Council President. Good morning, colleagues, and good morning, everyone. I'm excited to be back in session with these passionate leaders of our city, and I'm honored to continue representing my neighbors in West and Southwest Philly. The Freshman 4 just celebrated our 1-year anniversary in office earlier this month. And I think I can speak for all of us when I say we never could have imagined what this first year would have in store for us and for our city. But throughout all the challenges and pain, all the obstacles and uncertainty, my mission is the same as it was on day one. I want to bridge the gap between those who have and those who don't. I want to empower our citizens to have a voice in decisions that impact their communities. And I want to ensure that our neighborhoods are diverse, accessible, and equitable for generations to come. And I'm proud of what City Council accomplished last year. Council members Gim, Brooks, and I sponsored the Emergency Housing Protection Act, which has kept thousands of our neighbors healthy and safe at home in the midst of this deadly pandemic. In partnership with the Philadelphia Coalition for Affordable Communities, my colleagues and I secured $20 million for the Housing Trust Fund, which will preserve affordable rental units across the city and create new ones. And we advocated for public safety reform to bring peace to our communities and to build a foundation of trust between police and the neighborhoods they serve. There are a variety of important issues on my radar as we head into the new session. It's hard to overstate how important 2021 will be for the future of our city. What happens in the coming months will have a long-term impact on whether we are able to bounce back from this difficult chapter and whether that recovery is equitable. Affordable housing will continue to be a central focus of my work. We were experiencing a housing crisis even before COVID, and now these efforts are that much more urgent. A study we commissioned last year affirmed what members of our community already know too well, that affordable housing is increasingly out of reach for a growing proportion of our residents. And with that in mind, I am partnering with 7th District Council member Maria Quinones-Sanchez, a long-standing champion of affordable neighborhoods, to introduce mandatory inclusionary zoning bills, which will apply to select tracts of both our districts. Inclusionary zoning is a big piece of the puzzle when we talk about equitable development and would allow for the creation of new affordable units in the neighborhoods where new developments are built. This legislation will build off of the commitment Council has already shown to inclusionary zoning through the adoption of the mixed income housing bonus. Another major factor in our recovery will be to continue addressing the public health challenges presented by COVID, and most critically, to get people vaccinated. We have sadly already seen racial disparities begin to emerge in who's getting vaccinated and who's not. Right now, with questions swirling about the rollout, many people are understandably feeling a lot of distrust. I want to do everything I can to empower my constituents with accurate information so they can make the best decisions for themselves and their families. And I'll continue to push for more resources to address our escalating gun violence crisis, yet another public health crisis whose impact is felt most deeply in our Black and Brown communities. 499 people lost their lives to gun violence in our city last year. And in the first 27 days of 2021, there have been 41 homicides. That's a 17% increase from last year, the second most violent year in our city's modern history. This problem is not going to go away on its own. Too many neighborhoods in the 3rd District have turned into war zones. Too many people have been hurt and traumatized. So I'm going to continue advocating for more resources towards violence prevention and intervention, supports for victims and co-victims of shootings, and additional measures that would ensure that our city's response meets the level of urgency and transparency that this emergency calls for. I know how vital all of this work is, and I'm energized by the challenge ahead. Moments of upheaval are scary and difficult, but they're also opportunities to enact real and lasting change. I know this great body will take up that mantle this year and strive to deliver for all Philadelphians. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you for your work. Chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. A wise man said to me, if 17 people are in a room and they always agree, then 16 of them aren't necessary. So I relish the fact that we battle, we exchange ideas, we do it most of the time collegially, and we come up with the best product that we can compromise on by way of legislation and public policy. I want to thank you, Mr. President, and your staff for working with my staffer, Samantha Williams, on the upcoming legislation on the Police Civilian Oversight Commission, which will be submitted next week, but only after your wisdom prevailed in having a wide variety of people look at it, give their input from the administration to the FOP, from the Guardians to Noble to Power, who had a series of listening sessions, and to the defenders, to the DA, for all of those eyes, all of that input to come up with, I think, a product that we can all stand behind. So I want to thank you for that. I want to also say that as we move forward, it is important to note the reason why we created the commission was not just to be a standalone kind of reviewer of policy. It's important that my colleague, Member Johnson, submitted the no chokehold legislation. It's important that my colleague, one of the freshmen 4, Ms. Gilmore, is evaluating Act 111. It is critical that we look at Philadelphia Police Department training so that we can know the proper way to approach and de-escalate. Because all of these things will be what that commission reviews to see if we got it right. So I want to thank you all for that input. And I just want to acknowledge your anniversary, freshman 4. And then say, before that, I think there was a freshman 4 that was Johnson, Parker, Bass, and Squilla. And then the original freshman, my colleague, Maria Sanchez and Bill Green. So y'all following in some really good footsteps. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. I can't remember the time when I was a freshman. Thank you. The chair recognizes Councilwoman Kilda Sanchez.
I am going to be brief and take as long as I need, right? We heard that before. Councilmember Parker, it's okay. You can take as long as you want. And I just want to, echo and thank Councilmember Gilmore Richardson and yourself for highlighting these discrepancies. When I watched on January 6th, the insurrection in the Capitol, and I spent most of the holiday season really trying to get in the minds of of, where we are as a country as it relates to this whole race discussion that we're having. And, the folks that were at the Capitol, we know who they are. They're all about hate. And, Clinton called them deplorables. There's no way of us getting to some resolution with them. And we know that because they told us who they are. They showed us who they are. For me, the question is the other people who voted for Trump, the other folks who watch white supremacy, who have privilege, who are all over government and everywhere else, who say they're woke, say they're allies, but use their positions, never been threatened, right? They've used their privilege, never been threatened, but when it comes to the opportunity to do right by Black and brown people, they use their positions to block. And they are gatekeepers. There are gatekeepers in our government. And I know when we go through this investigation of what happened with this COVID, you're going to see people along the way, right? Those folks in our systems, right? Just the woman that was in our recruitment in the police department who used their positions to block and stop progress. I subscribe to all of my colleagues that these are the people we need to be concerned about. Those who claim that they're woke, those who claim who understand and continue to use their privilege to stop real progress. And I say this because I don't know how we had those conversations without people being really tense about it. And I think those of us in these spaces need to be unapologetic about making a whole lot of people uncomfortable as we check everyone and we check ourselves, right? I have certain biases because of my lived experience as an Afro-Latina in Hunting Park. And you're right, Parker, I watched family and friends get arrested through the 80s, right? Everybody. That's how we dealt with a drug crisis. And now as I try to maneuver Kensington, people call me out for being lacking empathy, as if my lived experience, right, is not valid, right? They're reading books and using Kensington as a pilot for policy, unproven policy, and then I'm insensitive, right? So as we move forward, and Council President Clark, I know that in this last year we achieved a lot, through your leadership. Hundreds of millions of dollars got to the people who need it. You heard Councilmember Gautier talk about rental assistance and all the things we managed to do together and link policy with resources, because ultimately at the end, what is important is where we invest, right? And in this budget cycle, let us be unapologetic. I don't want to hear you have an equity lens and then you make the decisions that you make. I don't want to hear that gun violence is important and then we're not putting the resources that we need there. We really, I was on WURD yesterday and one of the listeners called in and he said, city council is majority, minority. You have all these leaders. You guys can't take this anymore. You got to do better by the people. And we got to do better by the people. But we got to do it having tenseful conversations and making people uncomfortable. If you're in a policy position and you work for government and you receive taxpayer dollars, we all ask you whatever question it takes. And if you're uncomfortable and you don't want to respond and you don't feel like you want to be held accountable, then leave. But we are at a moment in time that we have to be as aggressive as possible around this issue. So I'm ready for very tenseful conversations. I'm gonna be unapologetic about my passion around this stuff because my lived experience going from PHA to being a lead baby, to my mother being on welfare, to her being able to get her first union job, to being the first in my household to go to college, my lived experience gives me the ability to say, no, these are not numbers. These are people. Let us not forget that we're not dealing with numbers and statistics. We're dealing with people. And this pandemic just highlighted for us that it is life or death. It is a life or death. So how we reopen schools and how we make sure that kids are safe, how we support people, I think we really need to look at all of the structures and how hostile we are for people who are working and struggling every day, making tough decisions. So I look and, the reason I got into public service is because I believe that we're supposed to be facilitators and good stewards of the people's tax dollars. And over the next 18 months, over the next few years, we're going to have really tenseful conversations. And I could tell you, from the original squad, Councilman Jones, till now, everybody who's coming to council, I respect. They're independently elected and they represent their constituency, but we've gotten a lot done. But people want us to do more. And there's no better team that I want to do that with than the folks that are in this council. I know, Council President, you always say this is the best council in the world and people think you're lying. You know, I have a lot of respect for folks. I have a lot of respect for folks I disagree with as much as the folks that I do agree with, because part of working with people with diverse opinions is understanding their perspective and their lived experience. And that's what gets us to be successful. So working together means you're going to respect where I am, whether you agree with me or not. And so for the executive, the legislative, and the judicial branch, because I think one of the challenges as we talk about public safety, you know, and Councilmember Johnson's highlighted this, the courts have to be on board. Everybody who works for taxpayers has to be on board, or they need to get out the way. So I'm ready to get to work. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. We're all ready to rock and roll in 2021. So I want to thank you all. Thank you all for your continued commitment. We do this because we are privileged to have this opportunity, and it means so much to us, and that's why we want to make sure we do right by the people of the city of Philadelphia. And with that, I'd like to recognize Councilman Jones for a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that council stand adjourned until Thursday, February 4th, 2021 at 10 a.m.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Council stand adjourned until Thursday, February 4th, 2021, 10 a.m. All in favor will indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All talked out. All
They want to stay.
All right. Those opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you all, folks, very much, and please continue to be safe out there. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, you were just listening in to City Council Live, a live gavel-to-gavel session of the Philadelphia City Council. Go to @PHL Council on social media, phlcouncil.com for more information on them. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll take open phone lines. We'll take calls from you, the listeners, also the residents of Philadelphia who've been listening into this return session of Philadelphia City Council. 215-634-8065. Toll free, it is 866-361-0900. Phone lines are open for the hour as we head into the noon hour. Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Tune in this Saturday from 5 to 6 p.m. for the Islam Today show with a perspective on moral guidance and Islamic principles and values.
WURD Radio is independent black media, and we're able to stay independent because of our onWURD movement and members like you.
Treat yourself to the treat of buying a WURD membership. It's less than a quarter a day. That's less than a bag of chips. And we really, truly need to keep this platform going so that we can stay connected as we reimagine our community in 2021.
Start or renew your onWURD membership today at wordradio.com/4word or call 215-425-7875. WURD Radio. Independent black media. This is not a fad for us. We will not resume our regular programming when things die down. We're not black to help our bottom line or because it's politically correct. We're not joining a fight. This has been our fight, our message, our people. Black lives have always mattered here. We are undeniably, indefatigably, unapologetically, permanently Black Talk Media. WURD.
Attention WURD audience, do you know that you can get help with your PECO energy bill? PECO is here to help you with financial help through various assistance programs, including the PECO CAP program, which provides a monthly credit for eligible low-income customers based on the customer's total household gross income and energy usage. If you are experiencing financial hardship, you may qualify for the PECO CAP program.
And PECO Cares is the customer assistance and referral evaluation service designed to assist special needs, low-income customers who have a temporary temporary personal or financial hardship that prevents the payment of your PICO energy bill. If you have a special needs child or adult in your care, your household may qualify for the CARES program.
Call 1-800-774-7040 today to see if you qualify due to an existing situation or a change in circumstances within your household. Call 1-800-774-7040 today for more information on the PICO CAP or PICO CARES program. PICO, powering our communities.
The onWURD Podcast. Check out the latest edition of the onWURD Podcast. Join WURD President and CEO Sarah Lomax Reese for a deep dive into everything surrounding the 2020 election. Listen right now using your favorite podcast service or visit wordradio.com/2020 in black. You can also ask your favorite device to play onWURD 2020 in black. WURD Radio. Independent Black Media.
America's kids are returning to class, in school and at home. And this year, learning is especially tough on students who already struggle with poverty, emotional trauma, and other barriers.
That's where our organization, Communities in Schools, can help. For years, we've had caring adults inside schools, helping these students stay in school.
And now, we are taking our work beyond the school walls, tutoring, mentoring, and counseling students, providing resources for at-home learning,
Delivering meals, providing household supplies, connecting kids with online classrooms, and using technology to maintain the one-on-one relationships we know can transform the lives of students and their families.
We are doing whatever it takes to make sure all kids have the opportunity to learn and succeed.
Communities in Schools, going wherever we are needed to help those students who are most in need thrive.
To see how you can help kids succeed, visit communitiesinschools.org. That's communitiesinschools.org.
The WURD Radio Newsletter, keeping you informed, engaged, and connected. Sign up by visiting wordradio.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page and type your email address under Connect with Us. You'll receive the latest information on WURD Radio, messages from our president and CEO, Sarah Lomax Reese, exclusive articles and multimedia content, and resources. Stay informed with the WURD Radio Newsletter. This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Independent Black Media. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and wordradio.com.
All right, welcome back to City Council Live. This is our Thursdays here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's first go to here out of Ohio, who's calling in. Well, I'm sorry, here on City Council Live. Got to get that, make sure I get that correct, because that's Thursdays now. City Council is back. Here out of Ohio is calling here on City Council Live. To here.
Hey, Charles. Good morning. How are you, sir?
Good morning. How are you doing, sir? All right. Good to hear from you.
It's always good to hear from you, and it's always great to have WURD, man. I tell you, and I'm very sincere about that.
Yep.
I'm either, I guess I'm getting older, but I'm not crazy. And I did see an insurrection on January 6th, right?
Right.
Okay, I'm just checking. So there are several, mostly all of the media outlets continue to tell us that it was something else. That the guy touched the hot stove and that's what happened. So
right.
One thing, I did see an insurrection. I want to make sure of that.
Right.
In other countries, there is no Senate impeachment. But that's another situation. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I did read yesterday in November that these vaccine people had a meeting with City Council, and do I not understand how to read?
That council had a meeting about vaccine distribution, vaccine rollout.
Well, they had a meeting with these people.
Yeah, to my understanding, based on some reporting, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, I'm in Ohio. I want to be very clear that I'm reading what I'm reading in this city that I have at least 200 family and relatives in, thousands of friends that I love and care about. And the city government is saying that this is all a surprise.
Mm-hmm.
And then they got on to the city council day and said what else they said. I tell you, man, I support and pray for all my neighborhoods, all my people in Philadelphia. It's just, and I'm so angry because the black COVID doctors from the beginning have had to fight and claw and scrawl for every bronze penny.
You know, and some fairness too to hear. I mean, we'll get more about that, but in some fairness too, I think those conversations, you know, people were aware that the city. That's why, you know, you have, for example, Council Majority Leader Sherrell Parker asked, like, who was internally within city government fighting so hard for Philly fighting COVID, because you know, it seems like there were situations here where, you know, you had like folks in council, including some of those folks who were visibly and understandably, rightfully outraged about this scandal, because it's a scandal. It is a scandal. There's no other way to describe it. They may have been aware of, you know, hey, listen, the city's getting ready to give this contract to, or giving this contract, awarding this contract to Philly fighting COVID. But, you know, perhaps their hands were tied, or they just like, it was just, you know, just as they were saying, you know, okay, we're giving this contract to Philly fighting COVID, and we're still trying to figure out, well, like, who specifically inside city government and the public health department, maybe someone on council was also quietly lobbying for Philly fighting COVID. But in the meantime, while they were doing that, they were trying to force Black Doctors Consortium to partner up with Philly fighting COVID. It's sad to say, it's tragic, right, to hear. This is a common thing. This is a common thing in all spaces, in all professional spaces, where either, you know, the more qualified Black professionals, I've had to deal with this directly even in my own life, or even in my own years of working in this space. You know, you're more qualified than your white colleagues, but you get the lesser contract, or you're told to partner up with those woefully unqualified white colleagues. So it's a common thing. So it's not, in a way, it's not surprising that this happened in the city, or that this occurred. Real quick to hear.
So Charles, I understand that, and for me, it's not even so much black and white. We're talking about people's lives. We're talking about COVID here, all right, Charles? Yeah. We're talking about COVID. So
you, right.
If you're in any room, I've been in rooms too, Charles. I was known as the person in the room. You come in with a backdoor deal. I'm from the hood. I'm gonna act like I'm from the hood. Get your scared ass out of here, because we ain't making no deals when it comes to helping the hood. So my point in saying that is that this is COVID. This is people's lives. You don't even think about talking to people who are not experts in healing people. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
Outrage at all. It's unacceptable.
But you know, that's been the problem with, and to hear, and I gotta let you go so I can take on some other calls, but you're absolutely right. But that's been the problem with this pandemic. That's why the whole national pandemic response, and now we're seeing even at a local level, is botched. It's because of racism. I mean, it's full stop on that. You know, the racism just infects, continues to infect the society like a virus, a contagion on its own. And it leads to decisions. It's racism that led to a decision like this. You know, when at the same time, you know, so much pressure and so much scrutiny, unnecessary scrutiny was placed on Black Doctors Consortium for a contract for testing. And you would think that with that track record, it would have been just a natural reflex to say, hey, well, you know what? We already have these folks. They're there on the ground. Let's give them the contract, or specifically give them a contract provide doses to vulnerable populations in Philadelphia. That's common sense, but they didn't because of racism. There's racism, whether they know it, whether it's conscious racism or it's subconscious racism, it's still racism. And based on all the reporting that we're seeing. It's also breaking news real quick before I go into the next set of calls, but we just had some, what was the breaking news where the founder of Philly Fighting COVID is admitting that yes, he did indeed take vaccine doses and administer them to his friends. He admitted that on NBC's Today Show this morning, quoting Andre Dorshin here. I understand that I made that mistake. That is my mistake to carry for the rest of my life, but it is not the mistake of the organization. So he's framing this as a mistake. So he's admitting to that this morning on NBC's Today Show, which is a national show, which means now Philly, here we go, for something really severe and really scandalous. This is a scandal, is under a national spotlight for this, and basically is being pushed out as an example of what you don't do during very critical vaccine distribution. Let me go to here. Let me let you go. Thanks for those comments. There are other countries that have impeached presidents, by the way. More recently, Peru is another country. South Korea, Peru just in 2020, 2019, 2017. South Korea, Brazil, Ukraine. So there are other countries that have like constitutional like systems, and they have impeachment proceedings for their leaders and presidents and prime ministers as well. Let me go to Gary out of Southwest, who's calling in for a reality check. Gary?
Hey, good afternoon, Charles. How are you?
How you doing? All right.
Good. First of all, I just wanted to say Gilmore Richardson for mayor. Charles, how did a college student get the authorization to distribute this vaccine? How does that happen?
Racism.
Right, exactly.
It is government malfeasance at its highest. It is executive level malfeasance at its highest. Someone does need to be held accountable. That includes the public health commissioner, and it's racism, whether they're fully conscious of that racism or not. People like to use soft terms like white privilege, racism. So, that's what this is. And particularly when you already have qualified, with a track record, medical professionals on the ground who are doing this work. It just seems like a simple plug and play. Oh, hey, let's give the money to them because they're doing it, and that saves you a whole lot of hassle.
But you have the Black Doctors Consortium, and I'm like, I don't understand for the life of me why they weren't heavily involved with this, especially since they're really helping to service and protect the Black community. And I want to say, we have people that represent us, and I really question whether they're really representing us, because everybody that looks like us is not necessarily about us. And, I respect someone who's going to stand up for my people and stand up for our causes and protect us, not turn their head and get a couple of dollars under the table, and we keep putting them in office. I'm going to say we have to blame ourselves, because we can't keep having the same individuals there. And we as Black people in this city in particular and in this country keep being underserved and put in a position of disadvantage, and the law enforcement can do anything they want to do to us. Like the previous caller said, look what happened in D.C. If that was us, well, first of all, we'd have never made it there. We would be laying out in the street.
Yeah.
Thank you, Charles.
Hey, thank you, Gary. I appreciate it. And so now's that opportunity for folks on City Council to match that passion that you just heard in this live gavel-to-gavel session of City Council, to match that passion, or take that passion and transfer it into real action. There may have been opportunities. We'll never know, but maybe we'll find out more. There may have been opportunities right around the time before, or right around the time Philly Fighting COVID was receiving this contract, for members of council, or for folks who were familiar with those discussions and that decision-making process, to call it out. That is a habit of Philadelphia's, folks. It's an insider game. It's one of the reasons why so many Philly residents or people who grew up in Philly are so frustrated with the city. It's always, people, it's maintaining a status quo. It's an baseball insider game. well, let's see what we can work out first before we go out. I mean, something like that. Maybe there was a moment, I don't know, but maybe there was an opportunity earlier on where somebody could have spoken up and said, hey, do you hear about the city giving this 22-year-old kid, this college student, this major contract for vaccine distribution? This smells fishy. And, they had the nerve to tell Black Doctors Consortium that they needed to partner up with them at, there may have been, I don't know. We don't know. We'll find out more. But there have to be, sometimes we feel like those call out moments need to happen at the moment the decisions are being made or they're being deliberated on instead of after everything happens. But Philly has a habit of the way it governs itself, its politics. It's it's to Tammany Hall to inside. Some of that is necessary sometimes, to get things done, to get the sausage making process. Now I understand as someone who's been a part of that, but there are other times where you really should be a lot more open and transparent about what's going on and seeing if the people, if the public can help you sort out a particular issue. Of course, I know there's some people who are probably listening to this program who thrive off of that. The insiderish nature of Philadelphia politics would probably disagree, but that's why we talk about, we try to put out ideas on a regular basis about how we can do and govern on things differently. Let me go to Prince out of Schuylkill, who's calling in for our reality check session after City Council Live. Prince, what's up?
Hey, Charles, do you know if the Black Doctor Consortium, is that a for-profit or non-profit company?
That's non-profit, right?
No, I'm asking you. Are you sure about that? If you don't know, it's cool.
That's I know what I say. Actually, I think it is for profit because it's under Dr. Stanford, right?
Right.
It's right, exactly. So it's for profit, right?
Okay. So I'm going to move past that. That's for tomorrow. So I just want you to work with me for a minute. So we got Temple, Penn, Drexel, Pecan, LaSalle, Hanneman, St. Joe's, Jefferson University, Eastern University, and Community College. That's about 10 schools in our urban Philadelphia city, right?
No, I'm sorry. I want to correct something here. It's not a profit. It's a 501c3 now. I think it started off. That's why I was confusing that question. Go to blackdoctorconsortium.com. It started off as for-profit, and now it is non-profit 501c3.
Okay.
There you go.
Right. And so, but I'll still talk about that tomorrow. What I wanted to say is my body of work in my PhD program is in urban strategic planning and management.
Yeah.
And so it makes the city council, when it's a debatable issue and you got the right people debating, it makes them look bad because there's not one school that doesn't teach urban strategic planning as part of a sociology department in these urban neighborhoods. Temple teach it, Penn teach it, Drexel teach it, Pecan teach it, because their schools are in urban communities. So if you were to do not you, but if whoever was to do their due diligence, they'll find that these particular curriculums teaches you how to pull down RFPs, teaches you how to respond to RFQs. And this is part of the internship, and this is part of your final grade, which is to build a nonprofit or build a for-profit company or pull an RFQ down for the Housing Authority or for the City of Philadelphia or for Amtrak or for SEPTA. And so it's unbelievable to hear them talk this stuff when the totality of what we do in this urban city. That's how come that's how come you have RCOs, which have taken the places of CDCs in some of these more affluent, revitalized communities. And so they talking at us, but they're not talking to us. They're not explaining the dynamics. They keep saying 22-year-old, a white guy, from Drexel. Well, the 25-year-old who got shot decided not to go back home because of his curriculum at Temple University allows him to make money in that urban neighborhood that was gentrified here in Philadelphia. So stop giving me this racism and the opportunity crap. No, the people that are in schools, when you look at the curriculum, they teach this. And if they teach this, then the question is, how come they are not an intricate part of the community? And that's the problem. No, the people in Temple didn't want to fill at all, but they wrote the necessary grants and secured the necessary money and secured the construction people, the GC and those people. And so once you secure that money and you have these charrettes, the very council people who hold the charrette for the already know what side they're going to be on. And so stop talking at us and start talking to us. And they are emotional about this, but they are.
Which I think is warranted. But I think you make a good point too, Prince. I think there's both and on here. But I think that yes, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's once again, this presents an opportunity moment for people to learn how these processes operate, how they unfold, how decisions are made. I do still I stand firmly on the opinion that the final decision is based on racism. but to your point though, Prince, you absolutely, I do agree with you. This is where especially when we talk about the collective Black political advocacy civic community organization community needs to come together and figure out, okay, well, what's a way in which we can all collectively educate ourselves or figure out some kind of, how that happens, or teach our young people, teach the people we're grooming up in this arena called politics and also policy making,
Charles,
how this all works.
Charles, my last point is that to your point, it is imperative that we share the academia information, because the professors are tied into the landscape and they're tied into the 10-year plan. And so you keep saying, how come these young white kids got these new coffee shops or these new pop-up shops? Well, they got the 10-year plan and they're familiar with that, and they know how to borrow capital. And so, to your point, you're right. There needs to be that engagement. Before you say racism, you need to be engaged. And the people who are supposed to be supporting us are the city council people. We're their constituents. Nothing to get past them without them letting us know first. And I'm going to hang up listening to you.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I agree with you, Prince, because we know that racism is there. It's always there. It's not going anywhere. But then the big question is, okay, well, what are we doing about it? How do we respond to it? Or not even how we respond to it. How do we figure out ways to progress despite it? So it's always being proactive as opposed to reactive, because right now, and this is to Prince's larger, broader point, and I agree with him. I share that frustration with Prince. We're being reactive, so we're in a reactive moment. But then, how do we get in a proactive posture so we prevent these sorts of scandals? Because it's a scandal. How do we get into a proactive posture so we can prevent these scandals from ever happening again? Let me go to George out of Center City, who's calling in for a reality check.
Yeah, good afternoon, Charles.
Hey, what's happening?
One thing I can say, boy, council came in like they had a big hangover, boy, from, their little vacation, boy, because they sure enough sound like, boy, they gave me a headache with all them foolishness they was talking. Let me tell you this here, Charles, what most forget is that at Drexel, my grandson goes there, okay? And those professors have done the right proposals, and those kids there are mostly IT specialists. Those kids, you got to realize that they know how to use computers and get information that is way beyond your imagination. Now, if you want to blame, you can't blame those kids. Kids going to be, that's what they do. Everybody's blaming them kids because they think it's an scapegoat. But remember how
you should know they're not. First of all, they're not kids; they're adults. They're over 18, George. And two, you should blame them if you're taking vaccine and administering doses to knowing that you have a responsibility. You have also somewhat of a contractual and fiduciary responsibility over those doses. Well, if you're just a kid, then you shouldn't be opening up a nonprofit organization or a company with something as. I'm not going to just brush it off as it's not the kid's fault.
Let's say they're young adults, okay? They're young adults. What you should do is give them a job and hire them, because what they did was outsmart the city. But remember now, what most people, everybody, even city council, that's what's so disgusting about them. They know that nobody's called in for an interview when you put in a contract. It's how well your paperwork is put together. That's all it is. They never look at a person. Everything is emailed on this, that. What those young people did was remarkable. I commend them. They got over on the city that you paying people 6 figures a year to do a job that they couldn't do. Council couldn't even catch on to that.
It's still scandalous, George. I mean, you definitely should. I marvel too at like the audacity and the skillfulness with which the cleverness with which they did this. But it's still, at the end of the day, it's scandalous. It's unethical.
Hey, Charles,
you can't be taking vaccine doses. I don't think it's something for us to, they shouldn't be rewarded on any level.
We can make up all kinds of excuses we want, but let me ask you one question.
Mm-hmm.
If they were black, you know what those city council people would do? Be calling for them to be locked up, this, that, and the other. And those kids, those young adults didn't commit no type of crime. They might have did some shady stuff, but their paperwork, look at their paperwork, Charles.
We don't know. We got to investigate it.
No mistakes, no nothing. It was professionally done. They got the professors even gave them high marks on their paper. So I mean, we sitting up there beating up on them, whereas though you should be commended and say, well, they're smart. Well, maybe we should,
Well, I think now what I heard in City Council today was not so much beating up on the kids, but beating up on the people who made the decision to contract those kids or those young people in the first place. That's what I'm hearing.
Council never tell you who makes the decision. It's an IT person up there in the municipal service building that makes the decision. They don't even have just got a high school diploma.
Yeah.
That person, that's all they have is a high school diploma that makes those decisions. And you mean to tell me that those young adults, they had the best proposal that it was.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, George, and I hear where you're coming from, George, because you're actually making a real interesting and very solid point here. I got to let you go. But the bottom line is they're over the age of 18. He's 22. They're not kids. And they stole vaccine. And last I checked, stealing vaccine is a crime, or should be a crime if it's not already. But George and going to Prince, you both make very solid points here, because there is a big conversation. There has been a conversation in Philly for a very long time about the disparity in procurement and contracting in the city of Philadelphia, how black businesses, black operations, despite the fact that it's a slightly majority black city, they're not the ones getting the lion's share of city contracts. And so, but then, I think a bigger question here is, well, what is that process? How do we, people are like, hey, you know what, we need black companies, black owned organizations need to get city contracts. Okay, well, how is that done? Because very few people listening into this program, I can tell you that, I don't really know too much about that process with respect to the city of Philadelphia. So how is that done? It's a very mysterious labyrinth process, and only insiders can play that game. Insiders, black and white and brown. So it's it's one thing to actively or openly call for a campaign for more, which is it's a good valiant cause. It's one thing to openly call for or demand that city government give more contracts to black businesses or to black operators or black professionals. But then, are we doing what we need to do as a community? Are we collectively creating a system of education on how that's done? No, we're not. No, we're not. So only a very select group of people, maybe on the outside we're having a big conversation. Yeah, more contracts of black folks, but then the vast majority of black people in Philadelphia, they don't know how that system works. They don't know how that process works. They're not getting classes in urban strategic planning, like Prince had said, and that's something that we are going to have to collectively work on, because they know how to do it. Other communities know how to do it, right? But we don't. Let me go to Lisa out of West Philly, who's calling in for a reality check. Lisa?
Hey, good afternoon. I really hate to beat a dead horse with this, but I just have a reflective comment and a question. I'll start with the question. I'm not hearing about any money that was exchanged. Was that group, the Philly Fights COVID, were they also awarded money to distribute the vaccine? So that's the question. Right. The comment is how the same thing happens over and over. So I won't share the names, but about 30 years ago, I interned with the city controller's office. My job was to do a paper on, there used to be, I don't even know if they're still around, MBEC, Minority Business Enterprise Council. They were sort of, they were charging that contractors, so there used to be set-asides. There was a legitimate, for city contracts, there had to be a certain percentage of that work that needed to be awarded to minority contractors. What MBEC was saying to the controller is that they were suspecting that predominantly white contractors were paying off minority contractors. They were giving them a portion to kind of like just say, hey, you know, we're giving you a little, it was hush money. They were giving them money, but they weren't giving them the job. And I actually was going out and interviewing some of these companies. Like I said, this was back in the late 80s. And they were livid that a college student was working on this project and calling them out. And the controller was embarrassed by it. So I just find it so interesting to hear almost 40 years later, we're talking about kind of the same thing again. But, you know, I'm African American, and I don't know, maybe they would have been upset if I were white as well. But I mean, that was just an internship. That wasn't anything funny. It was just them giving me a lot of leeway, maybe more leeway than they should have. I don't know. You know, things were very different back then in terms of, like, who you could get meetings with and who you could get in front of. And I was very clear about this was a project that I was working on for college credit. But the embarrassment was, how dare the controller have a student coming into some contractor's office and asking questions about how he's awarding contracts. So I just wanted to share that, but also curious about any money that group may have gotten from the city.
The Philly Fighting COVID had submitted a proposal for, I think it was like a $2.7 million projected budget, and Philadelphia DPH, Mayor Kenny, it was like, from the way it's being described, a non-contractual, no-cost deal. Now, speaking on Philadelphia City Council, there's a really good article everyone should read at some point. It just came out today. Actually came out last night, updated today at WHYY.org. The title of it is, Why Did Philly Entrust a Vaccine Program to a Young Student Group with No Healthcare Experience? And it's giving a timeline of how the decision was made. And, speaking of City Council, there's a very interesting paragraph in there, and I'm going to read it. A month later, this was after he made a presentation. This was after Dorshan made a presentation, which is described on a rooftop of an apartment building near Temple University in front of a dozen of his staff and volunteers. So that was in early October. And then, quoting this article, a month later, Dorshan made a similar presentation complete with colorful maps and a $2.7 million projected budget to Philadelphia City Council. He said his Philly Fighting COVID team had begun submitting plans for the construction of 5 high-capacity sites that could take 10,000 patients a day. So a presentation was made before Philadelphia City Council by Philly Fighting COVID, by Andre Dorshan himself. 2 months after that, the Philadelphia Department of Public Health and Mayor Jim Kenney's administration handed the group the keys to make Dorshan's vision come true, a non-contractual, no-cost deal to deliver thousands of vaccines and open up the city's first mass testing site. And for Dorshan, during this this night in early October, he was saying, this is quoting him, this is a holy Elon Musk shooting for the heavens type of thing, Dorshan said. We're going to have a preemptive strike on vaccines and basically beat everybody in Philadelphia to it. So it wasn't even about like the public health gravity of the situation that everyone's in. It's not even about, hey, we're trying to save people. It's about trying to be like Elon Musk. And that's a big, this is this white bro culture thing, and the startup culture, making something as crucial as vaccine distribution a startup project. That's the problem there. And he was going to he had a marketing plan where he was going to draw Meek Mill into it to really get the word out about this. So this was all about making money. But Lisa, no, thanks so much for calling in. Let me take some other calls as well. Phone lines are still open, 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. So at some point, Philly Fighting COVID, once we become more familiar with the timeline, we see that, Philly Fighting COVID did make a presentation before Philadelphia City Council. And so that question has to go out to members of the City Council, like, okay, well, what did you think of that presentation? Were you at that presentation? What sorts of questions did you have for Dorshan? Were you aware that he had no medical certification, that he had no prior medical experience, that the people on his team weren't medically certified? Did you raise concerns? So those questions are going to have to come up to members of City Council too, if we get more information that there was one presentation or a series of presentations that they were either privy to or that they were present for. And that's the job of City Council, is to conduct that kind of rigorous oversight. So there's a sense here that, like that rigorous oversight wasn't there with respect to Philly fighting COVID. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. I want to say one other thing too. One other thing I'm really disappointed at, but we're going to work harder on it as a part of this program, City Council Live Reality Check. We had only one comment during the public comment section of today's City Council session today, just one comment, and that comment wasn't even on Philadelphia really. It was about statehood for Puerto Rico. Not saying that that's not important, because there's a huge Puerto Rican population in the city of Philadelphia, always has been, and they are American citizens. The national point that Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory. But all these issues, Philly fighting COVID, vaccine distribution, racial disparities. Derek Green was introducing his bill for a public bank. I found this curious from Councilman O'Neill, creating a zoning code improvement commission, appointments to the Philadelphia School Board, Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson, and a bill for setting up environmental risk criteria for city government. I mean, all these issues that are being, so this is a failure of leadership on all sides when you only have one comment during the public comment period of City Council. That's not the way that's supposed to work. And so, I mean, this is kind of a public comment period here where people have the opportunity to call in and they make comments on Twitter. I see comments on Twitter, and I appreciate people doing that. I want to thank people for doing that on places like Twitter and Facebook. But here's an opportunity to have a direct conversation. It's just, you only get a couple of minutes to do it, so you got to keep it tight. But for you to put your voice and to put your position on the record about policy proposals, very important ones, being deliberated by City Council. And it's kind of hard sometimes for some of us to empathize with people's frustration and anger and outrage when there's not this big community-wide effort to make sure that those public comment periods are full. And so and are also, have the kind of projected passion in them, so Philadelphia City Council can hear from people directly in that official setting that, they have issues, they have concerns that they need addressed. This is how they want this policy or this bill or this resolution or ordinance to be deliberated upon. It's just a very disappointing moment when we have these City Council live sessions and there's no public comment period. And we just have to work on that. Philadelphia really has to work on that. It's a failure of the City Council and their leadership and people in City Council not encouraging their constituents to do so. It's a failure of all these countless civic groups and community organizations, grassroots organizations, not organizing their people and their members to participate in public comment period, because that's the way it's supposed to be done. It's just an all-around failure. It was just very disappointing to hear. Let me go to Woody, out of Winfield, who's calling in for a reality check right now. Woody?
Hey, man, interesting program, educational at the same time. And I was just saying to a young man just yesterday, he graduated basic public schools with all A's. He went to college and found out all that he did not learn. And he got so frustrated because he wanted to be a doctor. And he ended up just not being a doctor. But the point was, how much did he not know? Yet he graduated with all A's from the public school. So that's another form of discrimination as far as I'm concerned. Now, I've got a question to ask you. Is racism a crime?
You know what? It is. It is a crime.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's there are federal anti-discrimination laws or anti-discrimination laws on racism is a crime.
Okay. Now, is discrimination a crime?
Yes, discrimination is a crime as well.
Right.
Well, exactly. You can't get sued for that. Well, that's an interesting question, right? Because, discrimination, like a hate crime is a crime. And that's a form of discrimination, right? But then, for the most part, discrimination is like there's civil penalties for it. But go ahead.
So all I'm saying is this issue of races You saw them in Washington, and they had the right to go up there as racists and do what they did. They tore everything apart as far as they were concerned, and they'll never get charged as if imagine if they were blacks doing that to Washington, what would occur then? My point is this: racism is a choice that someone makes in their attitude and how they feel about a particular group of people. But when you hear the words "by the people," "for the people," and "of the people," keep in mind, I didn't become a part of being the people. I became a person in 1865. So it was never meant to come in a direction in which had anything to do with me being a people, part of the people. See, I became a person. So all I'm saying is when you label yourself and identify yourself as the non-immigrants, the children of former slaves, not African Americans, you will see how you'll be able to look at things from another angle so that you can pinpoint the problems and how to be able to get out of a situation or either charge people with a situation. We'll never do that because we're spinning around in circles because we keep looking at race as if it's plural. You can't have racism if it's not a plural. So you can have bigotry, hatred, prejudice, segregation, all that's real. But you can't have racism if there's only one race. So I would ask if you could go online as myself and a professor of race relations discussing just that issue, www.barbershoptalkhfd, like HarryFrankDavid.org, and check out race test. Those are questions that this professor ran away from for about 10 minutes because, see, back to systemic educational discrimination. It's real. You see, you could be a white male supremacist in your educational ideology, even if you're black. So the point is this whole country, including you, myself, everybody else that was ever educated, that educational system has taught us how to be white male supremacists in our educational ideology. And the higher you go up in education, the more of that you become. So please check out that website and listen to the professor of race relations. He was out of LaSalle University, and this guy was running away from the question. All I asked him is, excuse me, professor, how do you view race? Is it singular or plural to you? He says, oh, great question, and then he runs away for 10 solid minutes, not answering the question. So please check that out. Our mindsets play a big role, and telling the truth is really the key. If we keep looking at race as plural, you'll never get to the real facts of just how discriminated this country was against you, because you're not the people, by the people, for the people, of the people. You're not that.
No, thanks so much, Woody. Some real strong, interesting points there. Let me keep the phone lines open, keep going on. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Maurice out of Southwest.
I can't follow up on what Woody was talking about, but I can follow up. No, I'm not going to follow up on what George and Prince is, because I think they did a good enough job of explaining the ridiculous clown show that went down there at the city council today. They were arguing against themselves, which was surprising me. That's their job to find out if something's bogus proposals are going in and out. Don't try to push it at a lower person and try to blame them. They are to blame. So that's that. But I want to talk about the commissioner. All of a sudden, everybody want to get rid of her now. This is what I say. I never liked her being hired in the beginning. Not because she's black, not because she's a woman. I was strictly going by her resume. That's all I was going by. I don't care if the person coming here was purple. If they can fix this situation, that's who I wanted. If you bring somebody from another coast and from a small town situation of 700 cops to 6,500,
yes, 900,
and we're in crisis right now. We're not just coming over because we need a police commissioner. We need the best.
Yeah.
You know, when we went looking for Ramsey, we went looking for the best. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah, you're right.
When we got her, all the credentials that we asked for was that she was black and she was a woman. We didn't ask was she the best. And Kenny gave us what we asked for, which George always says. So all I'm saying is now you want to turn your back on her and be using her as a pawn. Now I'm on her side. Where's her support? The mayor runs everything in this city.
Who was? Let me ask you though, Maurice. Who would have been the best person to? Did we know at the time who the best person would have been?
No, they did research. You know who I would have hired? And this is going to sound almost what I just talked against.
Go ahead.
Over in Chester, they had an officer over there turn their crime thing all over. They didn't even bring him in for an interview.
Oh, the Chester chief of police?
Camden. I'm sorry, Camden.
In Camden. Okay.
In Camden. He turned that whole system over, and he retired, and the crime went right back to the way it was. I would have just put him in as advisory, you know, because he handled the situation. Because it's a big difference between West Coast and East Coast. We all know that. Now she got to know the land of the law, or you know what I'm trying to say, of the area, and you can't bring in somebody new with the culture that's here in Philadelphia. It's a whole different world. We're dealing with a whole different police union and everything.
You're talking about Scott Thompson, right?
We should have
Scott Thompson over in
out
Camden.
and
Should have
find
hired
the
him.
best.
Yeah.
I don't care if he came from Texas. I don't care if he came from Alaska. But we didn't do that. We only had two stipulations, black and a woman. And I'm pretty sure in the ranks of the Philadelphia Police Department, they had a woman that was black and a lieutenant or some kind of higher up that could have took the job and did a good job. So I'm just saying, don't beg for somebody to come here and then you didn't look at her resume and act like you didn't have nothing to do for it. Now you want to question. She doesn't even come on URD, but she comes on 1210 at 990. Think about
Yeah, so it's interesting. Yeah, so you know, we have we hopefully we'll get Commissioner Outlaw back on here on well, at least on Reality Check. We put that call out there, and so absolutely she has to make a better effort at having like frequent direct conversations with the community most impacted, overwhelmingly impacted by gun violence. So, you know, I hope, Maurice, you're calling out WURD's name on these other stations, like, you know, you're calling out other stations' names on WURD, because I'm not trying to get into the business of promoting other radio stations on WURD. So I hope, you know, if you call into those stations, let them know about WURD the same way you're letting WURD know about them. Let's go to Reese out of Winfield, who's calling in for a Reality Check. Reese.
Oh, no, it's Joyce. Hi, how you doing?
Oh, Joyce, how are you doing,
Thank
Joyce?
you.
All right,
Thank you very much for the article. I just read the article that you on WHAY. I guess my concern is, yes, as forward-thinking the young man was in producing his business idea but he presented it to City Council. Did they not know this was the situation, that he didn't have any credentials? I just kind of odd that they didn't know
that's
that.
A good question. Yeah.
And so it is right, as City Councilwoman said, we need to find out who gave the approval, who signed off on this thing.
Right.
Okay? And to get out of it, hopefully, in the article it stated that he took some of the doses home. He could have done anything with those doses, put water in it, put alcohol in it, or just he doesn't know the protocol because he's not in the industry to know there's protocol in terms of taking care of medicine. He can't even administer medication. And he was doing that. There were photos of him administering the medication. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So hopefully that'll get him to be canceled out on his contract with that.
Yeah, I think it's done. You know, the city's like, let it go, let him go. But the investigations and probes, thank you, Joyce, for calling, and thank you for, but questions, the questions out there, like, you know, why didn't members of City Council make us think about this at the time it was being presented before them? So it wasn't like this was being done completely in the dark. What were those conversations like between the city or between the administration and City Council on Philly fighting COVID? Because, but yeah, council has every right to be outraged like they were in this session that we just heard. They should be speaking out loudly about what's happened, what's transpired, and about this scandal. But folks, it's a very valid question. Folks have every right to ask it. What the Philly, apparently, the owner of Philly Fight, the founder of Philly Fighting COVID, did make a presentation before City Council. How many presentations were there, and were these concerns raised at the time the presentations were made? Did they make those concerns directly to Mayor Kinney, Dr. Farley, and to Dorshin himself? That's not clear. We don't know that yet. Let me go to Derek out of North Philly calling in for a reality check. Derek?
Good afternoon, Charles. Love, peace, blessings, and prosperity. Thank you for allowing me to have a reality check.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Brother Charles, you know, I'm almost on my knees crying for Philadelphia. Philadelphia needs so much help right now. I've never in my 60 years of life could think that Philadelphia could get so bad, whereas we're not safe. There's corruption. There's no unity. Despite all that, I'm going to keep myself up because I love myself and I love Philadelphia. That being said, Charles, I don't have nothing against the police commissioner other than I don't think that she's adequate in the job. And I don't base that on, I agree with Maurice 100%. I don't base it on the summer riots and protests. That just made it more evident to me that she's overwhelmed and she's just not equipped. And I agree with what Maurice said, that they hired her so that I believe because she was black and she was a woman, and so that she can fail. And so if it doesn't go right, Mayor Kenny is good at shifting the blame. So, it's not his fault. The police commissioner and the mayor, they are really not doing their jobs. I never voted for Kenny anyway, so I don't like the way how he's doing his job. And Police Commissioner Outlaw, she's not making us feel safe. That's what I have against her. She's not, do she think her mother would feel safe in Philadelphia? There are a lot of elderly people who don't feel safe. There are people who just don't feel safe, Charles. And that's the reason why I think she should resign. And the people who supposed to, they say, well, she only been here that long, or she was set up to fail. I understand all that. But when you go into a job, you can't expect people to hold your hand like I felt they was holding her hand. And the people around her, Charles, they got her looking really silly because they didn't protect her. They didn't look out for her. They didn't make sure that she was showing up at the right places. She was saying the right thing. I just don't think that she's a person for the job, Charles.
Yeah, and what's funny, another point you made too, Derek. I've never seen a Philadelphia Inquirer editorial calling for Commissioner Outlaw's resignation based on the high violence in the city. But we suddenly, a couple of days ago, we had an editorial calling for her resignation. This is the editorial board of the Philadelphia Inquirer calling for her resignation based on her response to the protests and unrest last year. So, there's definitely some interesting and strong points that the Philadelphia Inquirer editorial board is making, but it's this impression that Black lives really don't matter in the city of Philadelphia because, okay, a lot of Black people got tear gas too, particularly down there on in Center City, but so did a lot of white people. It's not until these sorts of activities or violence affects white people in some dramatic fashion, then suddenly there are calls for resignations. But when you have gun violence, which is, 90+% of the people who are getting killed and getting shot in the city of Philadelphia are Black, you didn't hear those. You haven't heard those calls for resignations after 500 people in the city of Philadelphia got shot, got killed, 3,300 people got shot in the city of Philadelphia last year. So it's just, I just find that interesting. Let's real quick, Joe out of Nicetown, you get a minute.
Good afternoon, Charles.
Real quick.
I just want to mention a couple things very quickly. Number one is that the commissioner, she has stated in a news conference, I understand, just held, that she's not resigning.
Yeah, so, she's not going anywhere.
Right. Okay, she did mention that she isn't resigning, and she, of course, provided a number of reasons why. But the second point I want to mention is about city council and COVID-19, is that before the COVID-19 people went before city council, they should have been properly vetted by the health department and the city of Philadelphia's risk management department, because those are two areas whereby they review the credentials, they review such things as insurance coverages, policies, procedures, and certifications. Now, how was it that they were able to circumvent those measures and then come before City Council to present a summary of their operations.
Yeah, it's a very good point. Very good point. We'll talk. But there is an Office of Risk Management inside the Office of Finance at the City of Philadelphia. So some more questions on top of questions already posed. Joe, I'm gonna let you go. You get the last word. We have to wrap this Thursday session of Reality Check. Also, City Council Live. You did hear the Philadelphia City Council Live, gavel-to-gavel coverage here on WURD, exclusively on WURD. The Source with Andrea Lawful Sanders is coming up next, so keep your WURD radio dial locked in for more conversation on the issues that we talked about here and others. Go to The Source with Andrea Lawful Sanders next. I want to thank Troy Wilmore for this Reality Check week, keeping it going. I'm Charles Ellison. You can reach me at Ellison Report via twitter.com. See Ellison at wordradio.com. Everyone, I want you to stay sharp, stay smart, stay safe out there. Have a wonderful weekend as best you can, God willing. I hope to talk with you and see you on Monday, next Monday, 10 a.m. sharp. Take care.